I do think like there are going to be parents who are like, and I'm going to skip this part because I don't want to have to deal with the nightmares that are going to come along to
Yeah,
that.
I don't want to have to
Um,
plan this thing for the next 10 years.
right.
It's time for Gavin Doodle.
Hello, everybody. It is a Wednesday afternoon. It is Gavin Doodle time. You can even see who we're going to have on this week down at the bottom here. There's a special name, Greg Pizzoli. So you know Greg probably from the Watermelon Seed. Probably know him from Goodnight Owl and the new stuff, Earl and Worm. And he's got more and more books than I can ever believe. And so we're going to have him on today. The sketch that I have here is, I'm going to be working on this. It's going to be a little bit wide. I'm going to have to angle my wide shot out. But Greg Pizzoli is a superstar, has been around for some time, and I have all sorts of questions for him. I weirdly remember this book on the shelf. Like, I remember the shelf it's on. I remember the type of day it was when I first found this, because I remember being at the library with my son when he was really little, and I remember finding this book and being like, who is this person? I gotta know more. And so I'm super excited to finally have the chance to talk to him. We will see how it's all going here in a second. I have a live feed issue that I'm trying to figure out on my iPad, but let me switch the camera to me. Whoop. There I am. Hi, everybody. How we all doing? So again, Greg Pizzoli is backwards now that I switched the camera, but we'll be on. I'm trying to think if there's any other updates. I've been posting stuff to YouTube, so if you miss out on any of the episodes, please just hop onto YouTube, and you can find that at Studio Hoffman. It's 2 F's, 2 N's, and I'm going to let our guest in and just get going. Let's see. Oh, first, before I do that, I am going to put a Ask Us Anything on here. Anything. Just so it's there. Boom. And then I'm going to pin that once that's there. So if you have questions, you can ask us, and then I'm going to let our guest. Let's cross our fingers it works. I restarted my phone just before this in hopes. Hello.
Hi.
The
Hi.
man, the myth, the legend, Greg Pizzoli. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Did you know I was going to start by saying that?
I, s- I saw the thing you posted that said legend. I was like, all right, here we go.
I mean, I think I have to
No,
back it up.
I mean, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for letting me.
No, it's one of those things where, like, in Kidlit, there are names that stand out to me as, like, quintessential markers of time on the Kidlit spectrum. And I feel like, like the equivalent of, like, there's people that are of today who are like, like Sophie Blackall is one of those people where, like, you see Sophie Blackall or Isabel Arsenault.
She's great.
Yeah,
Also great.
You see these names and you're like, okay, that's a specific time frame of, and I have this I was mentioning it with the Watermelon Seed. There was in the library, our local library, I just remember like going and discovering it, and then I found all of your books. There was like a section. I was like, I'm gonna go through all these books, and I'm gonna go. And so, like, I have this moment in time that's embedded in me of discovering your work. Now, is that legendary to everybody else? I don't know, but it's legendary to me. Let's put it that way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I remember, this is like way back in the day now, like maybe like 10 years ago, but I got my editor used to send me the Scholastic catalogs, like when they would have my books in them, she would send me the paper version of it.
Yeah.
And they, at the time, I don't think they do it anymore, but at the time they had something called the Pizzoli Power Pack, where you got like three books in it. It said, like, for like $8 or something. You know, you
Yeah,
got three paperback Pizzoli books, the Pizzoli Power Pack. So I kept that one. I have that
that's
somewhere in a drawer.
that's a good like a good alliteration, etc. But
Yeah.
that's a getting in Scholastic in that like the school
Hmm.
goes out. I do feel like
Yeah.
that must be an honor to like have those in there. The only thing that I have that I think could potentially be in that I haven't checked is some of the Little People Big Dreams. They do like packages of stuff like that, but
Oh
nothing.
yeah.
But I don't have a power pack. I don't have anything. I don't have anything of the sort.
Right.
Um, but well, thank you for joining us. This is to me, and I'm sure I see there's lots of folks that are tuning in. To me, at least, huge honor to have you on because I really have been a huge fan for a long time, and I have all sorts of questions. My wife
Oh,
and I were just
thank you.
going through the list of names of books upstairs, and I have questions like I got to ask you about Tricky Vic,
Oh
the
yeah.
like
Yeah.
the difference there. I have questions about your line choice and like sort of how you choose some of those things, etc. We'll get into that, but
Okay.
first,
Sure.
for those that don't know who you are, uh, can you tell us? Yeah, can you tell the people who the man, the myth, the legend actually is?
Yeah. Yeah. I was just laughing because I grabbed a whole stack of books because I thought you'd probably ask about inspiration or books that I liked when I
Yeah,
was a kid or whatever. So I
absolutely.
grabbed a whole stack of them, and I neglected to grab any of my own books
That's okay.
to sort of talk about. But I think I might have a few here next to me. Oh, I do. I have a copy of The Watermelon Seed, which is a good one to start with. Yeah, this was my first book. My name's Greg Pizzoli, and I write the words, which means I'm the author, and I draw the pictures, which means I'm the illustrator. And yeah, this is my first book, The Watermelon Seed. That came out in 2013. So it's like an eighth grader now. It's something
Yeah,
like something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And a more recent picture book I did, this one, Lucky Duck. This is about a Susan the Duck who's having kind of a bad day, and the wolf who's trying to eat her. And my most recent books, I actually have here on this bookshelf too, are these early readers. I don't know if you guys can see those. I guess they'll be backwards, but
Yep.
yeah, Earl and Worm, and there's three of those, and each of those has three little stories about two friends. And yeah, I also do nonfiction. I don't have a copy of Tricky Vic right next. Oh, I do. I do have a copy
You
of
do?
Tricky Vic
Yeah.
right next to me, right here. Yeah. Um, and yeah, this one I'd love to talk about. Sort of like why I made that book or whatever. Whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I still do nonfiction. This book came out a couple years ago, Pizza, A Slice of History. And I'm working on the sequel to that one now. I'm sort of wrapping up the sequel to that.
About.
And
Can you say what it's about, or is it?
oh yeah, yeah, it's a history of ice cream.
Oh, okay.
Ice cream.
I didn't know if it
Yeah.
was going to be like lasagna next, or it was going to be something like, you know.
No, it's
Did you have to do a
pizza.
lot of research for those?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, we're a big ice cream house, for
Okay.
sure. But yeah, and I'm just starting to write. I probably can't talk about that one too much, but I'm writing. I think it's like going to be a whole series of stuff that I do with that Pizza Rat character. Pizza Rat comes back for ice cream,
Okay.
and I think he's going to be in the subsequent books too. So
Cool.
it's fun. I like working in different styles, in different for different age ranges, and for I like writing fiction and nonfiction and early readers, and I'm down to talk about
Okay.
whatever
Cool.
you
I
want.
mean, this is meant to be a conversation. I have no
Yeah.
agenda beyond just sort of picking your brain and sort of getting information out to the audience. But um, one of the things that we sort of lead off with right off the bat. Well, I should say this. You posted this lovely little reel that said like I'm going to be on Gavin Doodle's Mark, and you said at one point you go, and it's 3 hours, and you have this look in your eyes. And I will state right now, you stay as long as you want or as short as you want. There is no pressure. I've
Oh,
had people stay
okay,
for an
yeah.
hour. I've had people stay for 4 hours.
Oh, okay.
It's really up to you. You don't have to. Don't feel the pressure. Let's put it that way.
Well, I sort of I cleared it with my wife is upstairs. She may walk down at some point. My wife, Healy, is a graphic novelist too. I don't know if you know her
I
books, the
do.
Casey's Case. Oh, cool.
I
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
So she's upstairs. She's like had a couple days of installing a big exhibition that opens tomorrow. She does a lot of gallery art in addition to books. But she's got the kids this afternoon, so
Okay.
she's doesn't have to pick them up till like 5:30 or something. But so I should be good until at least then. I should be
Okay.
clear.
And then you're in Philly, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did you get hit with the snow, or did you?
We did like a few weeks ago. We got hit with like 10 inches of snow, and it was really, really super cold, and it just lasted forever. It was just
Yeah.
like the roads, I don't know, the city really fumbled the cleanup, and it was kind of a disaster for everybody. And then we got like, I don't know what it was, another foot this past Sunday into Monday, and the kids missed one day of school. And I don't know if it was like political pressure or if it was just because it was kind of warmer, but everything was open again. Like by Tuesday 9 a.m., like the
That's
schools were open, everything was fine.
that's what I
So
was wondering with your wife's gallery. It's just the idea if you got hit with that, a ton of snow, like prepping for a gallery show could be
she
a
did.
nice.
She was supposed to like start installing on Monday, and they started installing Sunday instead.
Okay.
So they were just like, oh yeah, let's
Get it done. Yeah.
do it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So today we're gonna draw, we're gonna sketch, topics can go wherever. But I need to know two bits of information first. One
Okay.
is, what are we gonna be working with today? Do you know material wise? Are you digital? Are you on paper, or what's the scope there?
Oh yeah. I work all over. I work everything ends up in Photoshop at some point,
Okay.
whether it's just to like send the files or whatever. But I wasn't sure how well I was going to draw and talk at the same
Okay.
time. So I gave myself some kind of mindless drawing tasks today.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Totally fine.
and one is making a sticker design. I'll work on a sticker. And then the other one is some drawings of Earl and Worm that I'll just do in pen and ink. So I'm going to draw uh, so yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. Like
Okay.
a butterfly sticker design and then some Earl and Worm drawings.
And then, out of curiosity, for those that are interested in sort of um, the media side of things, like I know a lot of stuff ends up, digital or has some digital component. But are
Yeah.
there materials that you gravitate towards, or brush packs, or like are you on Procreate? Are you in Photoshop? What's the?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I use Photoshop. I don't use Procreate. I don't have I have like an old iPad, but it's really just a Disney Plus machine for my kids. For the cars and
Okay.
planes.
Yeah.
I bought an iPad a year ago and had intended to work in Procreate, and I returned it because I didn't like it. It was
Really?
like it was like during that, like if you buy something around Christmas, they give you like a month to try it out, like as if it's a gift or something, and return. And I ended up returning it. I
I
even
mean,
had my name.
you grew up on Photoshop, I assume. So it's
Yeah, and I use what's called an Intuos. I have a Wacom like Cintiq
yeah.
thing, like one of the cheaper ones, like where you have to hook a laptop up to it, not one where it's like got a computer built into it. And I use that when I travel, like when I go away for school visits for a while or whatever, I'll draw in my hotel room on that. Um, but here at the studio, uh, I don't know if I can show you my desk. I don't know if it'll work, but
Yeah.
I just use like an Intuos. It's called an Intuos Pro 4. It's like one
Yeah.
of those flat ones. So you draw down here and look up there at the same
That's,
time. And
I
I've
spent
just,
4 or 5 years in animation, and we had, I don't even know if it was into us at the time, but you got like after a while you get used to that, like looking at the screen and your hands doing, like it's not the screen where your hand is drawing, it's the Intuos versus the Cintiq, and
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
skill to learn, but once you learn it, it's again very, very easy to manage.
Yeah, I've been doing that for like, I don't know, since like 2008 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the Wacom, the Cintiq thing, like it's fine. I do it. I use it when I need to, but it's not, it's just like not my main thing. And then
Yeah.
the iPad, I just like, I probably was doing it wrong. It just like it was never seamless enough for me to like be working on something on my computer and then like have it instantly be there on my iPad and like be able to go back and forth, like kind of like a Dropbox thing. That's what I wanted, and it just never works that way. So
It's the other thing that I have said on here many, many times. It is not a designer's tool. It is
yeah,
it is a sketch tool. It is not somebody.
yeah.
If you want to do type design or anything of the sort, it is not handy for that. But so why don't we jump into our downshoots and we can just start talking and go from there. And if there's any topic that you want to broach or you want to stop with, just holler. It's again fair game. It's just a conversation. And I know that do you know AJ Smith? He texted beforehand or DM'd.
I don't know him personally, but I watched at least part of the talk that you guys did, and I saw that he sent some questions from his high school students.
Yeah, so I got to remember what they are, but I'll look
I
them
didn't
up.
write them down. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know some basics of it, but and then
Can I
people.
ask you a question before? So
Yeah,
when we
go
do
for
the
it.
downshoot thing, I need to reverse my camera, and then do I need to keep my phone vertical or do I move it horizontal to do that, or does
Vertical.
it?
Do
Okay.
vertical because it stays vertical on screen. And so what I
Okay.
do is I have the screen facing up so I can look down at the screen if I need to, and so I'm just
Yeah.
back camera, and it
I
works.
have one of these things that I bought during COVID that
A ring light.
I've I, I've used like 3 times. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
there I am. You can't see it
Yep.
because I'm backwards. Yeah. It's like
Oh
looks
yeah.
like this.
I got basically the same thing sitting in front of me right now. So
Yeah.
I have the feed. I can watch and make sure everything gets set up okay, and then let's just start rolling and doodling and
Okay.
asking questions and talking.
Cool.
So I do need to check my feed. If for some reason you can also zoom in and out a little by pinching your screen, and so you can get a little bit wider shot if you need.
Okay.
For some reason,
Probably do.
not showing up.
Let's do it this way.
Trying to get my Instagram to show me the feed on my iPad here in the background. For some reason, it's struggling. So I know that we're out there. So, anyways, so I want to start as you start to set up here. I wanted to ask a little bit about sort of history, because I know that you have a background in print, and and it shows up like the newest book, the sun one, the when the sun goes down.
Yeah. Yeah. That comes out in April.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one has like a distinct.
Right here.
Yeah, it has a distinct like layer separation of color that shows up in it. A little bit like the Joohee Yoon, where she has that like those CMYK sort of separated. And I'm wondering, just can you give me a little sort of history lesson on sort of your education and the artistic practice until you got to kidlit in particular?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I should say that it's such a compliment to be compared to Joohee. I mean, she's one of my favorite illustrators, and I had the pleasure to meet her one time, maybe twice, and she's so cool. I love her stuff. That book, this was printed actually. I did all of the separations by hand, and I actually brought some separations out to show you, so we can do that later on,
Yeah.
if you want. But I studied English Lit for undergrad, and I thought for a long time I was going to be, I don't know, a poet. I wasn't maybe super concerned about career stuff at the time. But I was just really into writing, and especially writing poetry in college. And then I wasn't totally sure what I was going to do after school, and I just knew that I wanted to get out of the town where I went to school and where I grew up. I went to college like not far from where I lived in high school too,
Yeah.
and
All the same friends, all the same parties, all the
I
same.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, not a ton of parties. I mean,
But
was and remain a super nerd, but I um I just have this butterfly here. So I'm gonna actually work today the way that I worked for When the Sun Goes Down. So it'll sort of explain it maybe.
that'd be great.
Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, I joined AmeriCorps. I joined AmeriCorps. It's called Volunteers in Service to America, the VISTA program, and I did that for a year, and I moved to Rhode Island, which I think you went to school in Rhode Island, right?
Yeah, I went to RISD back in the day. I
Yeah.
need I need you to tell me what AmeriCorps is. I know the name. I think I have an idea, but I have a feeling I absolutely have it wrong. What actually
It's
AmeriCorps does?
it's the Domestic Peace Corps, um, and it's like essentially a volunteer domestic Peace Corps. So like when you join the Peace Corps, I think you join for 27 months, and you are sent somewhere outside of the country. Um, when you join AmeriCorps, it is usually a 12-month, it can be a 2-year commitment, at least at the time.
Yeah.
And you volunteer essentially, but you do get paid, but you get paid by like whatever place is sponsoring you to have you there. And I think when I did it in 2006, I think my annual income was like just shy of $11,000 a year. It was something like
Ooh.
that. It
Okay.
was pretty
Yeah.
pretty.
Low.
It's volunteer,
Yeah. Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah. Anyway, so I was basically like I went to Rhode Island because at the time Rhode Island had come up with this like program for their high school students where they had to fulfill a portfolio requirement and like an art portfolio requirement, but they didn't really have the art teachers or like the infrastructure to actually get all the kids to do that requirement.
Yeah.
And where I was, there was just like a school with like, I don't know, 1,800 kids and one art teacher. And it was just like impossible for them to get the kids up to speed to basically be able to graduate high school. And so was placed at a volunteer or my volunteer placement was at a community arts center. And I had a little bit in undergrad, I minored in studio art and I had some darkroom experience. And so they basically brought me on. They had a big darkroom program, and they brought me on to teach like darkroom photography. But the kids weren't like super into darkroom photography.
Okay.
um, it was kind
Pivot.
of
Pivot.
like
Yeah.
it was just kind of like the time when cell phone cameras were like becoming ubiquitous, and it just was like a lot of work for them to be, they could just like reach in their pocket and take a picture.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but I had some screen printing experience from undergrad. I was pretty into screen printing, and I had like gotten into that through playing music and making posters for bands and like for my band and for my friends' bands and stuff. And so I got, I think like a $400 grant to start like a little silkscreen shop at this community arts center. And have you ever silkscreened before? Do you
I
know like
have
anything about
ages.
silkscreen?
Yeah, ages and ages ago, like high school back in the day with I don't even think that we had like the emulsion. I think it was Frisket that we used in order
Oh,
to
okay.
do it all. But um,
Yeah, I've used Frisket for illustration. I've actually never used it for screen printing. But I only knew about photo emulsion at the time, so that's what we did. And we would expose our screens with like a clamp light, um, just stuck on a broomstick between like two chairs.
Yeah.
And it was like super cheap, like super accessible, really, in a way. And the prints weren't super high quality, but anyway, I started a little silkscreen program there, and I started teaching printmaking to adults and to kids. And I just got really into it, and I just like it gave me the ability then to like keep making posters for bands too, and I just like kept making posters. And then I ended up leaving Rhode Island, and I moved to Philly. And in Philly, I did another year of AmeriCorps at Temple University. And while I was at Temple, I applied for grad schools, and I applied for a few different grad schools, and the one that I ultimately went to was University of the Arts. And
As we shed a tear in the background for.
yeah, seriously, I mean, it's such a loss for the city, to be honest. And a lot of my friends and who lost their jobs. But anyway, I mean, the program that I went to is called Book Arts and Printmaking, and so it's basically printmaking classes, and we had access. We had screen printing, letterpress, lithography, etching, fabric printing. All the kinds of stuff that you would want to do. But our program in particular was like everything was in service to a book. Everybody was making books, so we also were taking bookbinding classes. And a lot of the people that I went to school with were very into like the fine press book world. Like they essentially made like blank books, which is like its own art form and its own skill to make like a nice leather bound kind of thing. But I was like came from a background where like I was making zines and posters and sort of like more of a DIY kind of thing and selling stuff for $5. And they were like a lot of the program was like more about selling stuff for 500 to 5,000 bucks, And so I didn't really feel like I super fit in with the program, although I did meet my wife there. She was also in the program. She was also making stuff that was pretty different, I think, than what was sort of expected there. And I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh, but I had a teacher there, this lady, Susan Vigors, who really sort of like recognized my interest in poetry and my interest in making pictures and comics, and she just introduced me to picture books that I had never seen before. Just like I always liked picture books, and I still have favorites of mine from when I was a kid, but for whatever reason, I just hadn't really put two and two together that I should be making them, or that's really where I would end up. And her mom was, I think her name was Ruth Hill Vigors, and I believe that she was the editor of the Horn Book. And then she had an aunt who worked at Macmillan for a long time.
I was gonna ask, in the sense of like going from or being in a book and printmaking venue, for someone to come up and go like, kids books, this is the thing that you should do. There had to be some connection or some reason why that sort of popped into her head, whether it be from personal history, or whether it be something visually that you were doing that sort of populated that. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
Oh, no. I mean, yeah. I mean, Susan is an incredible person. I mean, she's an incredibly giving teacher, and she she just like she would do this thing every year where she would have the first years. I think maybe the second year. It was a 2-year program. I think maybe the second years came too. Um, she would make us a big dinner, have us over to her house, and she just had a really wonderful. She still has a really wonderful children's book collection at her house. And she would just show it off a little bit and show us some of the books. And she had a lot of respect for picture books.
Yeah.
And she showed me the Sendex that I had never seen before. I'd seen um, obviously Where the Wild Things Are when I was a kid and was still kind of familiar with it, but I didn't know like maybe the Ruth Krauss collaborations or the even the Nutshell Library, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, she had like original Sendek drawings on her wall, that he drew of her kids, something like that, Um, and so for my graduate thesis project, I mean, fast forward like 2 years, I had been working with her, and essentially my graduate thesis project was 2 children's books. There was a lot of like little sculpture and prints and art stuff that I found time for when I was in grad school. But the main thrust of it was 2 children's books. One which I offset printed in an offset press that we had there, and
Yeah.
then I silk screened the covers, and then the other one I silk screened all of it. It was like a 32-page picture book that was screen printed by hand, and I made it I sewed them, did the binding and all that kind of stuff.
Did the other
Um,
people in the program know how to react to the stuff that you were doing, in the sense that they were doing, more of the fine art approach, or
I
was?
mean, my year, I was probably a little dismissive of like my colleagues. Like I didn't mean to be dismissive at the outset. Like we were all doing different stuff,
Yeah.
and it's not like they didn't understand it. I think they did. I think it just like in book arts, and I've never thought of myself as a book artist, even though I got my MFA in book arts, because there's a fair amount of like snobbery that goes along with book arts. Um, there's some cool stuff happening too, for sure, but I was always sort of like repelled by the like the fine binding stuff. It just wasn't super interesting to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Gotcha.
I can respect the craft that goes into it, but it just like
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
wasn't my. I didn't want to make a blank book. I wanted to fill it with stories, kind of thing. And no, I made. There was a lot of cool stuff being made. It just wasn't. I don't think anyone else was really making kids books. Um, and let me see. Yeah, but after that, I mean, I just kind of like knew after that I wanted to get paid to draw. I knew I wanted to make kids books ultimately, but I was just trying to like hack it as an illustrator of any kind. Um, and so I ended up getting like a day job, um, maybe like a couple months. I graduated in 2009, so it was like not the best job market, if you remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. No.
but I got a like sort of an admin job, and the place where I work, it was like a PR firm, and they sometimes needed like light Photoshop work or Illustrator work, and I was sort of bluffed my way into that position, and it gave me access to those programs, but it also like wasn't that demanding of a job. They didn't have actually that much work for for me. So I was able to spend a fair amount of time like making promo pieces sort of on the
Yeah.
clock.
Did they? Yeah.
Um,
Did they know that you were doing this, or is this a? Um, Like,
Well, I don't think anyone from that office would be watching now.
okay,
But I think they knew. Yeah, I mean, I think they knew that it was like a stopgap thing for me.
statute of limitations is worn off, and you're allowed to talk
Right.
about it.
Yeah, it's all good. And I mean, the thing is, like, I think there's maybe some people feel bad about having a day job, quote unquote, but it gives you health insurance, and it gives you a place to sort of like not stress as much about whether or not the thing that you want to do is what you're getting paid for at the moment. I mean, it's definitely difficult, and it was really hard having a day job that then you'd be tired, so you'd go home and be like, oh, I have to draw, and only have 40 minutes in you, or maybe you had to go grocery shopping that night, so you didn't get any studio time that day. It's always a balance. But in retrospect, I've been doing this full time, doing kids books full time now for 15 years. In retrospect, I think it was good that I ended up doing what I did. Although I was very ready to be done with it when the time came.
I mean, I've been a huge proponent. Like, I teach a professional practice class right now for illustrators, business, etc.
Mm,
I've been a huge proponent of that. I
mm,
like a day job is sometimes actually super beneficial, not just because of insurance, but the idea of the safety net of thought, that you don't use up all your creativity and every single day. So you have these, the opportunity to be, especially if your day job is like, being a barista or whatever it may be, you have the opportunity to really use your creativity towards what you want at the end of the day versus what your boss wants. And that idea of like, there is a negative name to having a day job in some art communities, which I think is absolutely bogus. Sorry, I went real 90s there with that shit, bogus. But
well, I mean, I think like it's a well-known secret of people in publishing and children's publishing, but it's just like the art world in general is, there's a lot of people who just come for money,
yep,
so they don't have to have a job. They like, they somehow, well, I don't want to get any more
yeah,
specific,
yeah,
but it's that was not my scenario, and I needed to have a job. And I mean, I think a barista would be really difficult. That would be a really difficult job for me, and I'm sure it's exhausting. But I do think, like, you're right in that rather than maybe being like a graphic designer or an in-house illustrator and then going home and being like, and now I'm going to work on my own stuff, where you might already be zapped. Like, I was, like I said, kind of able to work a little bit while I was there, but I was also um, not really doing anything creative like for that job. Um, and I also was teaching. Like, I was the semester that I graduated, the guy who I had TA'd for a few times, his name is Peter Lister, was retiring, and Peter was a really fun teacher, and he only taught the one class, like it was like 3 hours a week. It was just like a part-time guy, but he'd been doing it forever. Um, and the department head, before I graduated, asked me if I would be up for teaching, like, just continuing that class that I had been TAing,
yeah,
but as the teacher. And so that gave me access to the school too. Like, it gave me, like, I could sort of still had a locker there and could go and screen print when I needed to. Um, and it introduced me to a lot of people too. I really like teaching. I miss that for UArts. I wasn't teaching there at the time when the school closed, but I had fantasized definitely about, like, maybe going back there someday and teaching part time.
I mean,
Um,
that is such a sort of icon of a school for folks, especially in that sort of region.
So many good people went there, you know. My wife was just, she, that's where her exhibition is actually. It's tomorrow night. It's at the University of the Arts. Anyone in Philly who is watching this should come to the show on Thursday night. It's at the old Hamilton Hall. But she was putting together like a sort of a little library of kids book people that went to that school, and it's like Aliki went there, like Aliki is one of my favorite illustrators, and Caldecott medalist, what's her name, Catherine Milhouse went there. There's a lot of big names there. I did have a children's book class when I was in grad school. I took I think one illustration elective, and it was a children's book class taught by Robert Byrd. Do you know Bob Byrd's work?
The name sounds really familiar. I'd have to see the artwork.
I brought one of his books out. Like I said, I brought a whole stack of books to talk about influences and stuff, but I'll put it on. You'll probably see it on screen in like 25 seconds. But he writes a lot of nonfiction books, and his class was so cool because I remember his syllabus was written in pencil and like photocopied, just like handwritten pencil.
Old school.
Yeah. My ring light is like making the cover all shiny, but this is his book, Electric Ben. And I have a signed copy. And he's just these really delicate, beautiful watercolor drawings, pen and ink, and then watercolor.
Did you ace the course at least?
Bob is funny. He always, to this day, like I saw him, we were at the same children's book festival last year, and to this day, he will bring up that he didn't really understand what I was doing in the class, and he sort of apologizes to me every time he sees me, which is not all that often. I see him, at events and stuff, and I think he feels bad because like he gave me a really bad crit or something one time. I don't really remember it that way. I remember him very fondly.
Yeah.
But he does always kind of, I think it's because like I've always had a kind of a thing where I think it's common with a lot of screen printers. I know actually that screen printing is kind of seen as like the other kind of printmaking. It's like the cheap commercial printmaking. It's not like as
lithography or
yeah, in that like silly art world, where people care about such things. Like they're like, oh, it's a silk screen. It's not, I don't know, a lithograph or something. Which I don't really get it, but I always kind of felt like I was like a little too much of an illustrator for the printmaking crowd, and I was like a little too much of a printmaker for the illustrators. And children's books is really the place where I felt like I've sort of came into my own, like I sort of figured out what I wanted to do and how I was going to say it and stuff.
Yeah, out of curiosity, thinking about sort of that idea of, knowing that Kidlit was sort of the direction, was it kids, or was it the format that sort of drew you to that specific industry in the sense of like, what do I want to say? Like, you could essentially do like middle grade, or you could do, novels and artwork and things of the sort for an older audience. Was it that age age? No, I can't say age range. There we go. Specifically, that did the trick for you, or was it? I guess I'm phrasing this horribly, but that idea of like what drew you to that specifically as a format for your narratives.
Hmm. I Boy, that's like a big question. I
I
I
don't
think
pull any punches here.
I think it came down to, yeah, like really just like the stuff that I liked, and then that you find stuff that you like, and then you try to emulate it a little bit, in your own stuff. Um, and when I was working that day job, um, it was right near Rittenhouse Square in Philly, and there's a great public library there. And I would go, not every day, I mean, probably not every week, but often, go on my lunch break down to the library there and just bring a tote bag and get 10 or 15 children's books, picture books, and then read them over that week and sort of analyze them, I guess, in a way, or just sort of figure out what I responded to and what I didn't. And I think those were just the books that I really connected with. Um, and my own work, I mean, Watermelon Seed was sort of like was it's a picture book, but it was like really interpreted, and especially because it got the Geisel Award, like has been seen as like an early reader, kind of.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think like that, like getting that big of an audience, like at the sort of the beginning of my career, helped me to read to more kids that age. And then I just kind of like I just began to think of them as my audience more so. And then it took me a little bit of time to to start writing books that were for slightly older kids. And then
Because
arguably I swayed a little too far one direction, and I pulled back a little bit. It's I
yeah,
don't know.
you
I
didn't
don't
have
think.
kids at the time, right?
No, I do have two kids now, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I my first daughter was born in 2020 during sort of the height of the COVID pandemic. So um, I, was pretty established as a bookmaker at that point.
Yeah. Did with sort of now that you have kids and thinking back to that sort of the start of career, do you think you would do anything any different in the sense of like I ask this to people. I'm always fascinated by this topic just in general. The idea of like we're in this industry where our audience potentially is little ones, and those little ones can the way they think sometimes is so different than potentially what we as adults gravitate towards. And I'm wondering, looking back at it, do you think that your career would be the same if you had the resource of your kids at that time to be able to pick their brains or to, question and say, hey, is this a good idea? What Papa is working on? Or do you think that you would still sort of end up in the same pathway of sorts?
Hmm. Um, hmm. I think like, I want to be kind of sensitive to that, to answering that. I'm aware that there are many people out there who might want to have kids who are, for whatever reason, are unable to have kids. So I think that like I don't know that having kids makes you a better writer necessarily.
Yeah.
And I think like Ursula Nordstrom, if you ever read the book Dear Genius by Leonard Marcus, The Letters of Ursula Nordstrom, she definitely like came down hard on her authors who had kids, and she like yelled at them basically for having babies, um, because she felt like it was going to hurt their art. I think for me personally, I am really grateful that we were able to have kids and that they're healthy, and I love my kids so much. But I'm also glad that I was able to sort of establish myself before I had kids, because I think it would be harder for me personally to have said no to certain things,
Okay.
and just because of like the financial strains of having kids.
Are you saying that they're financially straining? I can't believe
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and so like I think about so I don't know. I mean, and I also think like my kids in particular are both, I think, really good artists, and I really like the stuff that they make, and I do read them my stories as I'm writing them. But I also don't know that your own kids are a good barometer as
Yeah.
to
Okay.
as to what's good or what's going to work in the marketplace or whatever. Like there's that classic thing of like somebody cornering an editor at a conference being like, my kids love this story. And it's like, well, yeah, and I'm sure they love you very much, but that's
Yeah.
not what we're talking about. I do think like in terms of writing in general, having kids has sort of like helped me tap back into that like sense of wonder of
Yeah. Yeah.
um I think about something like a book like that brilliant book by Joohee, the Every Monday Mabel,
Yep.
every
Every
is that it?
Mabel Monday.
Every Monday Mabel, I think it is. I don't know.
You're
Um,
probably right. I get it mixed up every single time I try
it's
to.
a combination of those three words,
Yeah.
and just how something like that I've seen in my own kids, like where when the trash guys come by, we open the storm door, and we live in Philly, so that when the trash truck comes down our street, it is 4 feet from our front door, and they're right there. Like our trash guys gave our girls Barbie dolls for Christmas this past
Oh.
year, um, and so you know what I mean. Just like appreciating smaller things in life that seem bigger when you're able to see them from a different point of view.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I think like when I started, I was able to rent a studio space that was, I think, $270 a month. And, I was able to do stuff that I probably, that I wouldn't have maybe been able to make that
Yeah.
decision if I had had kids at the time.
Are you work out of your house now? I assume, right?
No, I work
Oh.
out of a studio about, it's about a half mile from my house, like an 8-minute walk, something like that.
And do you get like thinking about family and time and working and that kind of stuff? Do you get the opportunity to step away when you want, or is it more of a like scheduled? You need to be picking up kids after school or things of that sort at this point because
Um,
of the studio. In other words, like because you're separating yourself um,
yeah.
wise from.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, yeah, we're a two artist household. And so our studio is I'm on the second floor of a 3-story building. And so Kay and I, Kay Healy, who I don't think I have a Casey's cases right next to me, but I can grab one at some point. She works upstairs on the third floor, and she has the bathroom and I have the kitchen. And so we're both like up and down into each other's spaces all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we have two little kids who are both still in play school. And so I'm going to change up the thing I'm drawing on now. And yeah, they have to be picked up and dropped off at certain times. So we're pretty regimented. We just have like a calendar, that we work on. And we usually have like short days and long days. So like today, because I'm doing this, I have a long day at the studio, so I can stay till like 6 if I need to, 5:36. Um, and then Kay, because she was installing her show, like I picked up the girls the last couple days, and we just like alternate, like pretty. We have a pretty set
Yeah.
schedule, but then we, if somebody's got something going on, then the other person will pick up the slack.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's one of those things where, like, as a artist prior, not necessarily there's tons of freedom of any sort, but the flexibility, the adaptability is a little bit higher in those situations. And as someone who has a kid, is in the kidlit world, I I absolutely adore the fact that my entry point, like, let me ask you this, and this is a little bit better way to sort of get to the conversation, or to the point that I was going to make is, did you grow up around a lot of little kids? Or like when you broke into the kidlit world, was there a moment that you had to go, oh, how do I talk to, a 5-year-old, because I've been talking to 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds for, the last 10 years or what have you?
Oh, um, you know, that's not. I don't know. I have to think about that. Um, my little sister is 7 years younger than me, and so I changed a lot of diapers and stuff when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've always been the guy who, like, if someone has a baby at a party or something, I'm like down to hold the baby, and I, I've always liked kids. Um, and I have a lot of little cousins and stuff. So yeah, I think I was around a lot of kids when I was pretty young. I My parents split up when I was really really young, like when I was like less than a year old, and I lived with my mom till I was 13, and then I moved in with my dad when I was 13. And there weren't a ton of kids on that side of the family, like with my dad. Um, but I've always liked kids, and I think like the thing I talked about in Rhode Island, like I liked working with kids. That was when I first started working with them, and um, I worked at summer camps and stuff like that too. Um, so yeah, I've always liked kid stuff, and I've always sort of felt connected to the work that I liked as a kid too.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
if that
that's
makes sense.
effectively a kid at heart. The the reason why I brought that up is just, I like, in my case, I did not have little kids around when I was growing up of any sort. And so, like, I remember the first time I held a baby after, probably since I was a little kid at some point, I was like 20, and I had to sit down because I was so worried about dropping the kid. And now I feel like after having a kid and working with kids, or reading to kids, the understanding of like their brains and what they're excited by, how to sort of get them to interact has changed dramatically. Um, and so, like, doing school visits, the first school visit was very rough. Of, okay, I just expect the kids to be quiet, and then I quickly learned that that's not always true. Um,
Oh
and
no,
that's that.
no.
Like, yeah, how much experience do you have? Kind of question. That's where it comes from. Is that like, how easy of a transition was it to go into this career where basically kids are the stars of the show in a way?
That is my least favorite. That I love doing school visits. I did about, I don't know. I did like at least 30 school visits last year, and like at 30 different schools. I mean,
Yeah,
so however many presentations, at least 90 presentations. And that person is pretty rare these days because I've learned how to shut it down pretty quickly. But the person who comes out and is like, boys and girls, you have to sit down and listen to Mr. Pizzoli.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
like, the kids, I'll make a joke and the kids will laugh, and then they'll be like, shh. don't, like, dude, I just
The point was to,
just
yeah.
just let me handle it. Like, I've got the microphone. I'm cool. I mean, there definitely have been groups where I'm like sweating at the end of it because it's Friday afternoon and they've got a 3-day weekend and they just had lunch and it's um but yeah, the I I I don't know if this will answer your question, but I back in like 2015, a book that I did called Number One Sam. I'm just gonna ink this thing real quick because
I remember number one
I
Sam.
can't really see it that well. It's just pencil, so I'm just gonna ink it real quick, and I'll tell you
Number
why.
one sitting right next to watermelon seed when I found them together. Like those two are
Oh,
linked in my mind.
oh, thank
It's
you.
like there's a lot of people I've had on that I can say like, oh, I remember discovering your work, but not as vividly as yours for some reason. Like yours just stands. I don't know if it was a special day. I don't know if it was like what, but I remember that day
It
specifically.
sounds like it was a special day, the day you discovered Greg Pizzoli.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I don't think it was like, oh, it was the day that I like found out I was getting money back on taxes or something like that. I don't think it was some trivial thing like that. It was just a day where like I remember the books and maybe it was that was also early on in my because I think I started in 2015, and so I was really like honing in on like what are people doing in this industry, and so you were just
Mm.
you were there at the right moment at the right time for me. So. Um,
Oh, well, good. I mean, great. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
It sounds a little weird, but yeah, yeah. As I was in my late 30s, early 40s, whatever it was, being like you were there for me in that moment of need. Uh, but
No, I get it. And so in 2015, Number One Sam, um, it it was the state. It was the I forget the name of the thing. It was one book every young child for 2015 in the state of Pennsylvania.
mm,
So what that means is they, at least in my case, they printed like 75,000 copies of the book in paperback and then gave them out at libraries around the state. And I think maybe like a community partner, like Joe's Tire or whoever would buy the books for a couple bucks each, and then the kids would get them for free. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Well, as I leak ink all over myself here,
like
and anyway, and as part of that, I had the opportunity to do a 5-week book tour throughout, just through the state of Pennsylvania. So basically, the deal was they gave me a day rate, and I drove my own car, and I went all around Pennsylvania visiting these libraries, and I do a presentation. And I didn't have a ton of school visit experience at the time, but my good friend Zachariah OHora, whose work you might know.
yep, yep,
He created the Carl the Collector PBS show and has
yep,
done many great books. We're super tight, and he had done this same kind of trip like a couple years before. And so he told me all the stuff I needed to buy and, to get my own PA system essentially, because you never know if you'll need it. And I got to clean my hands because I'm getting ink all over them. And in any case, but anyway, so I did that tour, and I would do sometimes. I think the most I ever did was like 6 visits a day, and I mean, I think I drove like an hour in between each one, so I was going all over the place,
yeah,
from like morning to night doing these libraries, and I'd be at like the Steamtown Mall in Scranton, and then I'd be at like a random bookmobile outside of Pittsburgh, and um, but I really, really got over any issue I had presenting. in
Yeah.
front of kids. I just like
Just want it.
it's not an issue for me anymore. I like if you told me that in the next room there were 500 kids and I needed to talk to them for 45 minutes about making books, I could do it right now. With the, that's just, I have no issue with it anymore.
Is
Um,
is it now a routine, or is it a like an improv thing where you've done it so many times you can just wing it without necessarily having to have a script of sorts?
I think it's both. I think it like I definitely have like um places that I always go to or I'm always like moving towards. And I do have like slides and stuff. And then I have like different presentations for different age ranges.
Yeah.
I do like a reader's theater with second and third through fourth graders, or I do more of like a just kind of an extended story time with like kindergartners and first graders. And I always draw. Um, but I don't know why I started talking about that tour. You asked me something
Oh,
about.
I was asking about sort of the comfortable or how comfortable you were with kids at some
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
like
So like these days I'm just like I'm very, very comfortable with it. It's all it's it's a lot of fun. You can just like kind of have fun with the kids. I think also like when I was starting out, um I think number one Sam had come out, and I think Templeton Gets His Wish had maybe just come out, and Tricky Vic too, but Tricky Vic was not like for the same kids as number one Sam. Um it was like a different age range.
yeah.
And
So
these days I've done, I don't know how many books I've done, but like a ton. So like if there's just like a lot more to talk about, there's a lot more. It's a lot easier to just get up there and kind of riff.
tell me a little bit about the Tricky Vic, because I look at your work and there's not necessarily there's a set style, but there is a tonality to a lot of the work that potentially reads a little younger, etc. And then Tricky Vic sort of, was that something that um, was a cognitive, this story needs to go this direction, or did you decide I want to go a direction like this and found a story to match, if that makes any sense?
That does make sense. I think like um so I'll back it up a little bit. I first heard about Victor Lustig, the con artist who's the star of that book, in when I was in school, in grad school. And I think my studio mate at the time sent me like a history.com blog post or something where they talked about him. And I found a little paperback kind of dime store book about him from like the 60s. And I always had it in my head that I was going to do it as like a little artist book, some kind of little zine or something.
Yeah.
And I remember my agent at the time, he's still my agent today, but at the time we were talking, it was like probably, I don't know, 2000, summer of 2011. And I told him, I have two book ideas. And one is the story about a crocodile who swallows a watermelon seed, and he thinks that it's like going to grow in his stomach, and he freaks out. And then I have this other idea, which is like about this con artist who was a real guy who sold the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal. And I remember my agent was like, he's like, the crocodile one sounds funny. You should
Yeah.
do that. And he's like, the con artist thing, it sounds cool. You just have to make sure you do it in the right way. And which is like agent speak for, I'm not so sure about that one. I don't know about that. And I was having lunch with a friend of mine, and he really encouraged me to. We have the same agent, and he had really encouraged me to make it as like a zine. And so I did, and I'd sold the watermelon seed. I'd taken my agent's advice, and we ended up selling the watermelon seed and Number One Sam were part of the same book deal. And then I just thought, like, I was teaching it at UArts at the time, and I decided to audit a class called book production. I had taken it when I was a student, but my department head was teaching it, and she told me I could just sit in. And I decided, you know, if Tricky Vic, this idea is not going to become a children's book, I'm just going to make it as a zine. This book production class was like, basically you got access to the offset stuff. You worked with the class, you know, we had crits and stuff. And then you can make an edition of up to 100 books. You only got like one sheet of paper, I think, or I think you got like 5 impressions. So the first zine version of Tricky Vic is like 3 colors on one side and 2 colors on the other, because I could only get 5 impressions total.
Yeah.
Five plates made. And I think sometimes, you know, like, and so I made it as a zine. I was happy with it. And I honestly almost quit the class a couple times because I was illustrating this other picture book that somebody else wrote, and I was just kind of overwhelmed. I was like a new illustrator, and maybe had taken on a little too much, and I was a little overwhelmed. So I told the teacher, my department head, who I'd known for a few years at that point, like, I was like, look, I think I gotta drop this. Like, thank you for. And she was like, you gotta just like simplify. Just like, if the artwork is too complicated for you to make it, just make it really simple. And she encouraged me to stick with it. And so I did. And then I sort of like, I don't know, it just came together. I don't know if you've ever had a project where it just like really clicks together really quick. It just kind of like started like almost like I locked in, and it just started like really came together quickly.
The best
And
except for me are those ones that, like you said, they just happen fast, and there's no break, there's no question about it. It just comes.
oh yeah, there's been a couple stories of mine where I've written them in like a day, and they're
Yeah.
basically like done, you
It's
know. And then there's other ones that I've like sort of agonized over.
it's those musical artists where they're like, yeah, we wrote this in an hour, and it becomes some big hit. And it's that same sentiment of like, if it's right, it flows easily.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I made Tricky Vic as a zine, and I sent it to the friend who encouraged me to make it is Mac Barnett. We've been friends for a long time, and we were just getting
Subtle name drop there. Subtle.
yeah, I know. I told no, I don't want to name drop people, but yeah, it was he deserves credit. And we have the same agent, and so I sent Steve, our agent, the finished scene, and I was like, hey, you know, that project that we talked about a while ago, I made it into a zine. Here you go. Like, I mailed it to him, and I was like, I just made it for fun. You know, I like it. And I think sometimes, you know, maybe I didn't do a very good job of explaining what I wanted to make when we talked about it on the phone, or maybe sometimes people just need to see something to understand. Like, I work better if I can do both words and pictures, you know, than like a telephone pitch or whatever. And he was like, "Oh, this has to be a book. You have to make this into a book." And we sent it out to a few places, and a few places said no, and a few places said yes, and then it just ended up like going to Viking. And you know, I to answer your question, like, I don't think I made a conscious decision to like, I want to do something really different than the watermelon seed or whatever else I was working, because I think I had signed up Tricky Vic before watermelon seed came out. I got the contract for it. Like this all happened, like I said, like in 2011, 2012. So I had sold watermelon seed, but I wasn't like known for it. It hadn't come out yet. And but I'm glad that it happened that way, because I feel like it I didn't feel I could see maybe feeling pigeonholed, you know, if I only had that book, or if I was sort of known as like the watermelon guy or
Yeah.
whatever. I was able to sort of be like, well, I'm interested in zines and weird stuff, weird books, and this is what I want to do, this kind of stuff too. And I think it's given me a little room to experiment, honestly. I don't know if you've seen my book, Two Little Trains. Have you seen that book before?
No, I'd have to see the visual at this point. My brain is mush when it comes to like memory of every single book, and my wife's much better.
I'm gonna step away for a second, just grab a copy
Yeah.
of it. I'll show it to you. Give
Okay.
it like give it a few seconds
Catch up. Yeah.
to load. But I'm drawing these Erlen worms over again because I'm trying to do a little I'm trying to do some homework while I'm here. I'm
Oh yeah.
sitting here gonna do a little homework. But Two Little Trains was a book that I did. I had done a previous book by Margaret Wise Brown, and here it's on the feed now. I can see it. And this is a book that I illustrated all with rubber stamps, you know. And watermelon seed actually has some rubber stamps in it, and like the actual seeds in watermelon seed are done with rubber stamp. And Tricky Vic, the thumbprint, and there's some rubber stamps in that too. But this book, I wanted to really experiment and do something really, really different. Even the lettering in this book is done with rubber stamps, even the text. And I don't know that I would have had that, like if I would have had the room um, to try that kind of stuff if Tricky Vic hadn't come out. And then Tricky Vic was lucky enough to win a New York Times Best Illustrated Book of the Year the
Yeah.
year that it came out. And so I think that just gave me a little faith, or like a little room that I could try different things, that I could move outside, like lean on my design influence a little more, and
Left the door open for other.
for some experimentation. And yeah. And it also, I mean, Nancy and Telly, the editor who brought me on for the two Margaret Wise Brown books, like, credit goes to her too, for like having the faith to be like, all right, he's gonna, because she had brought that book to me, and I was interested in it. My ink dried in my nib a little bit. But I remember coming back to her and saying, like, I want to do it, but I really want to try this thing. Are you okay with me doing the rubber stamps? And she was down for it. And I really appreciate that, when an editor is like,
Play. Yeah.
is able to give you some room,
That's the idea of trying to diversify your portfolio. I think such an interesting like it's a concept that seems so straightforward, and yet so many people sort of, I don't want to say screw it up, but they get caught up in the, well, I need to have one singular voice or one singular style, and lose track of the idea that like the imagery that you make is going to be consistently yours in some shape or form or another. So like even the stamp thing, like your shape iconography is the same that you do in all the other books. And the Tricky Vic, there's things that you do in there design wise that are akin to, Goodnight Owl. And so it's not like it's completely removed, but we often sort of look at the superficial well, it doesn't have the exact same line, and so therefore it's it looks like someone else's work, and then we shut down fairly easily. And so having that the fortitude, the insight, whatever it may be, to say, I'm going to establish that I can do different things early on, or that, what I've done early on is establish the ability of me to be able to play more. I think is such a good sentiment that people need to listen to in some way. Can you give me a little snippet of the choices that you make when it comes to some of the digital side of things? Hello, Lauren. Oh no, Siri, stop talking to me. It picked up and started to ask me questions. But the idea of, like, when you go digital, like, one of the things my wife and I were talking about is the line work in particular. Like, you have a line work that I think is very distinctly yours. And I'm wondering,
Oh, yeah.
is that something that is a comfort? Is that something that is a cognitive choice to, again, like, say something specific in the work? And for those who don't know, like, when the line work, there's oftentimes, like, breaks in the line work. The line isn't a full, complete, or the line is irregular, let's put it that way. And I'm wondering sort of your sentiment on some of that, as far as, like, choices and how you decide to play with design, like what makes the decision happen.
I mean, I think in terms of the line work, it's hard to say like how much is just my hand and the way my hand moves, and how much of it is. I think like in terms of the line not being finished, or sometimes I like it when I did it in Earl and Worm a lot, where um, there's sort of like a boundary box around some of the illustrations. It's almost like a vignette, but it's like got like a box around it,
Yeah.
and I like it when the line like breaks that box in some way, like either a character's foot or even just like a random line will break it. And I think it comes from like my interest in really the work of like Tommy Ungerer and later Richard Scarry stuff. Like when Scarry started writing in or drawing in pencil, he got like a lot looser. Um, and I think, yeah, it's just like trying to like this thing I usually do. Like, you probably can't see it right now, but you will in like 30 seconds. But the little like neckline that I draw on my worm character, like I will often have it crossover. And I guess that it probably feels like a mistake, maybe, and maybe at some point in my career I would have deleted that, gone back and deleted that. But I like that stuff now.
Yeah.
I like things to feel a little rough around the edges, I guess. Digitally, the way that I work is pretty different. The way that I draw is I kind of draw like in a I don't know if this is the way to say it, but like subtractively. Digitally, like I will lay down a huge swath of something with a brush and then kind of carve back into it with an eraser tool. And that's how I get my lines usually, is like I'll draw like a really big, fat, chunky line and then kind of whittle away at it to get what's left.
Is is there I mean, one of the ideas of that is the sort of irregularity of that line that is formed because of that subtractive, that, pulling aspect. Is that something that was a how do I put this? Was it a happy circumstance of one day you just did that, or was it was it a method that you already knew? Like, to me, the best things I do are things that are mistakes, and then they become, you turn them into a positive of some sort. And I'm instance of something like that, was that something that you sort of knew when you did it, like, oh, this is the right method or approach or what have you? Or was that something took a while to sort of sink in and go, oh, this is actually something I want to play with later?
Yeah. I don't know, Mark. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it uh, my background as a printmaker means that I think in layers all the time.
Yep.
Like when I'm putting an image together, um, I'm always thinking about two or more layers interacting. Um, and so that's just how I learned how to draw. I basically learned how to silkscreen and how to draw at the same time. Like how to make art really, because like I said, I was really into writing and reading, and I didn't take any art classes in high school. I know we might have some high school art students watching right now. I didn't. I moved around a lot when I was a kid, and I did go to the same high school for 4 years, but I think I was just like too intimidated by the art room. I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't an artist, you know. It's kind of a silly thing to think in retrospect, but um, so I think like I've always been more about shapes and how they layer, um, and how two colors will interact with one another, and like the extra bonus colors that they make when they lay on top of each other. Um, and yeah, so
Let me ask you a question about that, because that is a skill that is not a everyday skill to understand. Like when you layer things like that, especially distinct colors or um, uh, knowing what effect you're going to get. Let's put it that way. Knowing what effect you're going to get when you layer colors, is that something that um, that you practice in some sense? Like, like obviously with printmaking, you get a sense of like, if I stack these two colors, I get this. And if I stack these two colors, I get that. But when you're doing digital, or when you're doing any sort of the stuff now, and you're not actually making screen prints, do you test that out? Or is that something where it's just sort of well, it'll be what color it is when I go to the final production?
well, I mean, I think there's always like a certain amount of letting go, of just kind of like, well, this is what I had in mind, and this is what it ended up
Yeah.
being, and I don't know that I've ever met anyone who felt like it was 100% like the Venn diagram was a complete circle, you know. Um, eh, but I think like in terms of practice, I mean, I think it came from making hundreds of screen prints, before I sort of started doing it in Photoshop. And when I was in grad school, I would work by hand, almost exclusively. I would draw on a light table like I'm doing now. I had a bigger light table then because I was in school, but um, I would draw one layer and then print it. And then I would take that print back to the light table and draw the next layer on top of it.
Mm, okay.
It wasn't like I would design all four and then print out separations and then go and screen print. I've done it that way too. But when I was like sort of learning how I wanted to make images, it was more, I'm going to do one and then respond to that one. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to do another one and respond to that one. And I have an idea of where this is headed. And maybe even I have like a pencil of a key image that I'm like working toward. But it wasn't,
It wasn't a guessing game every single time.
well, no, I mean, I think it was a guessing game every
Oh,
single
okay.
time. But
Okay.
then I've, then it becomes an informed guess, like a
Yeah.
guess based on having done it 50 times before or whatever. Um, and yeah, so I mean, when I work now, like Earl and Worm, that's funny. It's like because my wife makes comics too. and she like sees my Photoshop files, and she's just like, "You're insane. Like you, however you've set this up is like, why are you torturing yourself this way?" And it's because I have a separate layer for every color in Erlen Worm, even though there's like 16 colors in the palette or something.
Oh,
I have it set up, and I draw each color individually, and I have everything set to multiply so that if they ever like touch a little bit, they like
yeah, you can see.
interact, you know?
Yeah.
And it makes sense for a book like When the Sun Goes Down, because that's like kind of the whole point of that book, is like the images are built that way, right? But for Erlen Worm, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but that's just how my head works, you know?
The real question is, do you label all your layers?
Yeah, you know what I do? You know what I do is I go in at the beginning and I make one file that's kind of like the perfect file. And everything's labeled, and everything, the guides are locked in where they need to be or whatever. And I do like Erlen Worm was 72, each book was 72 pages, and there were three books. So I like do a save as for every spread, you know, and so they're all like the identical file, and they're all sort of like ready to go. And then I inevitably like change a color somewhere and have to go back and change them all individually. But no, I mean, when I start with like good intentions, is yeah, I do have everything labeled, and I do a save as, so I've got like it's all on the same page.
Like I start with good intentions, never,
Yeah.
yeah, never finish with good intentions.
I never finish with good. I'm always like, oh God, I wish I had more time, and oh.
But speaking of,
um,
obviously that is time consuming, and like the equivalent of if you have these different layers in Photoshop, um, you move one and you get tangents, and you move another one, you get tangents, and you end up with all these like interactions of color that maybe works one way great if you move it to the right, but it affects another layer. Is a lot of like pushing of layers around at a certain point, or is it um, like there's some people that are very particular about edges and where things line up, or do you feel like you're sort of relatively loosey goosey and having fun with it at that point?
I think it depends on the book project. I think like um, like Erlen Worm, it was pretty well defined. Like once I had designed the first book, I had essentially designed the second and third book too, because it was like going to be the same palette, and they're going to be basically the same format. There wasn't as much to figure out the second and third time. There's still a ton to draw, but um, whereas like with When the Sun Goes Down, which I'll bring up, I'll show you some of the how I did it. Um, I was pretty very, very deliberate about the sketching and sort of like what each image was saying, like why each image was there. Obviously, like the writing with pictures part of making a picture book.
Yeah.
But when it came to like the proofing stage, there was a lot of back and forth on the colors, because the colors just like it just took a while for them to get the intensity that I wanted, and ultimately I'm happy with it. But it just took a few rounds of proofs to get there. But in terms of like art corrections or anything beyond the color saturation issue we were having, I didn't really have anything really. There was like maybe one or two like stray marks where I was like, oh, that might look like a mistake, I should clean it up. But most of the time it was just like, nope, that's loose. That's how I made it. I'm not gonna get too persnickety about it right now. You
Yeah,
know?
that's awesome.
Um,
I'm sure they appreciate that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I've definitely been on the other side where I'm like need to ask for 3 rounds of proofs or something. Um, but yeah, here I'll show you this page. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. If you do, you have to like stand up to look at your phone, or can you just look on your iPad
I
and
can
see
look
the
up.
screen? Yeah. Okay, good. Um, so there's an image of a fish that I made. And just for the folks at home, you guys can see there's a
Yep.
fish. And then, so I drew each layer of that fish on a separate sheet of paper, like a silkscreen. And maybe you can only see one side of the book. And I have them sort of like the way that I was making that sticker. I have everything labeled so that when I scan it, I don't get super confused. But I would just like make these individual ink drawings one at a time, kind of like what I was talking about with school, where I'd like make one and then respond to it with the next one. And it was just cool for me to see how like the pink layer interacted with the blue layer, interacted with the yellow layer. And then when you lay them on top of each other, they all, like the yellow printing over the orange or over the pink makes an orange, and the blue over the pink makes a purple.
I mean, that's what made the, like, now I have not seen the interiors obviously, but the cover looks so lovely with some of the, I think it's the sunset or the sun there, like some of the layering of the color and the odd, well, I say odd, but in a lovely way, the sort of layering and translucency of the different colors is such a like silk screeny approach. Even if it's digitally done, it has that same approach, which is essentially what Joohee Yoon does too. Like it's a modified silk screen, effectively.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think Joohee is like working a lot with colored pencil now too. She does all
Yep.
sorts of really cool stuff. Yeah, for me, this was like, I think I had done 3 Earl and Worm books, sort of back to back to back. And Lucky Duck was also drawn digitally. And I sort of like ping pong back and forth, like if I start to feel kind of restless doing one thing or another. And the book I had done before Lucky Duck is called Mr. Kitty is Lost. And I made that using cut construction paper. It just felt like it was appropriate because it was like for little kids. And I wanted to use materials that little kids would use. And Earl and Worm felt, actually, I drew the whole first half of Earl and Worm, maybe the first third, definitely the whole first story in pencil, and colored it digitally. And I gave it to them for launch, so that they could show the salespeople.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't know, I sat on it for like a week and went back to it. I was working on something else, and then I went back to it, and I was like, oh, I don't like this at all. Like, this is just not working.
Yeah.
I think it worked fine for the first story, but then the second story, I was just like, it's just too soft. It's not, it either my ability with the pencil or my ability to scan it and get it the way that I wanted it, or just the medium wasn't right. And so I ended up saying like, I'm going to redo this entire section of the book. And luckily I had the time and sort of space to do that at the time.
Were they okay with that? Or did they push back at all? Or was it like in the sense that the marketing team has already gone out there and sold the concept? Or was it relatively simple and what, this is what's right for the book?
I'm not even sure that I told anybody. I think I might have just done it.
Just did it.
I'm not sure. I think maybe sometimes I have a very supportive team that I work with there. Yeah. So I think it would have been okay, but I also kind of feel like the editor that acquired Earl and Worm that I've worked with forever is the same editor who acquired Watermelon Seed. And we've made, I don't even know, a dozen books together, something like that. So I think she would have been cool with it.
Yeah. There's faith that's or faith and support between the two of you without necessarily having to speak it every single time or get approval every time.
Yeah. I think if I was like, hey, I'm going to do it with rubber stamps now, like with the two little trains thing, I probably would have emailed and we would have talked about it. But I don't think from a sales perspective, like doing digital versus pencil was that big of a deal.
So I do want to. I know that there are some high schoolers tuning in. I just remembered that we had some questions about sort of starting. Kids that are thinking about going into this industry. Kids that are, and I say kids, anybody younger than me is a kid. Let's put it that way. It has nothing to do with their brain power or brain capacity. They're probably smarter than I am half the time.
How old are you, Mark?
How dare you ask? I am 48.
So I am a kid then. I'm younger than you.
Yeah.
I'm 43.
Yeah. No, I to be honest, I'm at a point where like I don't quite remember how old I am. I think I'm 48. If I did the math, that's how it works. I've gotten to the point where I just don't care anymore. Like everything hurts at this point. Right. At that point, it doesn't matter. But just that idea of, people who want to go into this industry, and it's that classic, what advice would you give yourself kind of situation. But are there things that you wish you knew? Are there things that, looking back at where you started, where you are now, that would have changed your trajectory of some sort?
Are there things that I wish I had known? I mean, I've been pretty lucky, like I don't know. There's not much that I would change about the way that things have gone. I think like I'm glad that I was able to sort of like I was talking about before with Tricky Vic, like sort of establish this other voice, and I wasn't like sort of pigeonholing myself. I think like other people are going to try to do that for you. And so if you can like try to avoid doing that to yourself, particularly when you're writing or something, that would be something I would avoid doing. Just try to like keep yourself open to other book ideas and book formats. And I've made graphic novels and picture books and board books, and is that it? Maybe that's all that I've done. Nonfiction books, and they're for different age ranges, and maybe they all kind of feel like they're all for the same or whatever. I haven't written any novels, but I would say like kind of being open to. I hear in schools a lot, like I think it gets drilled into illustration programs in particular, where illustrators are told that they have to have a style, and I think you just have to be like competent in whatever you're doing, and you can change up the style. You don't have to be married to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question.
No, the argument that I make with my students is there's a difference between style and voice. And voice is like, who you are quintessentially, that shows up in everything, no matter what style you're doing. And as long as you are understanding that and know sort of what's true to you and sort of stick to your guns in that manner, that you should be okay in the end. But then there's, like you said, there are the people that sit there and go, you need to have one singular vision, which I think is not only not a great advice, but also has the risk of pigeonholing someone before they even start. And so are there things, thinking about the fact that you didn't go the traditional sort of like into illustration, like the writing side, and then going back for an MFA that wasn't particularly in kidlit. Do you think that was a benefit to you at this point? I mean, I would assume that it is. I mean, first of all, you met your wife, so that's a benefit of the method.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I
Assuming,
met
I'm
Kay. I
assuming.
mean, I
Yeah.
met Kay, so I mean, as
Yeah.
you know, as $80,000 purchases go, like I
Yeah.
got a deal on that, you know. um, but I think like, yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess your mileage may vary, but you know, the proof is in how it's worked out. I don't know how much I attribute to to school because I didn't make it. You know, it may have happened otherwise. And I don't know that if I had if one of my girls were old enough to go to college right now and they wanted to study illustration, if I would necessarily tell them to go to school, to be honest. There might be other ways to do it.
Yeah.
But I also think like at the time in like 2013 is when Watermelon Seed came out. Having a spot color, like a 3-color book with hand lettering, um, it wasn't like unique in that it wasn't the only one out there, but it was pretty irregular, you know. So I think it stood out for that reason too. Like it was just like, oh, this green and this pink aren't in anybody else's books. Nobody else is doing this right
Yeah.
now. Um, and oh, my live feed just cut off there. I was watching on my computer. I don't know if
No,
it's
we're
going to
still.
happen on my phone too. Okay.
I think we're still going.
Um, good. Um, and I think like I've noticed that more publishers have done stuff where it's like you know, just more illustrators are doing like limited color palettes and I like that stuff. But I think like at the time, not that I was the only one doing it, of course not, but like it just was, I think, a little more unique than it is maybe now. I mean, I think like the picture books that are being made now today and in the last like 10 years or so are we're like in a golden age of picture
Yep.
books, you
Yep.
know. Um,
Think we're still in the golden age right now, or do you think that, I remember like pre-pandemic there was definitely a like, oh man, this is the market. But do you think that it's died down, or do you think that it's still up and lively at this point?
died down in what sense? Like
Uh,
in
just less books being purchased in general.
oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know either way.
Okay.
Like I wouldn't even know where to begin to guess. I I hope they're still buying, but I have some books I want to sell maybe this summer or something. So
I think buy your books. I know that for a lot of people that are new to the industry, it's a little bit more of a struggle right now, and I don't know if that's just because they're new or if that's because of the pandemic changed the landscape of what's sellable, or all sorts of variables that are at play there. But
I do think like I've sort of like noticed that it seems like people are being a little more careful about like what they're putting out. But that's all just kind of like my own. I don't, I don't have like I don't subscribe. I don't know.
you
I don't know anybody with like an inside sort of track to that or anything.
um, the that idea of choosing to go into illustration, obviously that's there's students who decide that they want to do that, but are there things outside of illustration in particular that you think are valuable or worth um, more consideration that would benefit someone who wants to end up in illustration, like the equivalent of going into book arts? Obviously you learned about book structure, whether you wanted to be someone who did why can't I think of the name? Like signatures and different binding structures and things of the sort. Still, you learned how to put a book together, and you learn how to print and you learn how to do these things that come back and potentially have some effect or some understanding of how industry works going forward. Are there things like that you can think of where you're like, oh man, everybody should try doing this one thing first?
Hmm. I mean, I think like taking a bookbinding class or a zine making workshop or something like that is good, just to sort of like shake off the idea that like you've got to make a whole book. My
Yeah.
wife does these workshops with kids, and if you look at the back of my Bologna and Friend comics, Bologna and Friends number 3, there's a like a how to make an origami fold. Sometimes people call it a star book. It's like make a book with a single sheet of paper.
Yep.
And I'll do that with kids at school visits sometimes. And you know that it gives you like a little bit of a lesson about imposition, like how to lay something out and how to think about making something that's reproducible too. Um, I do think like taking so many printmaking classes, and especially like offset printing, which would be harder and harder. I wouldn't even know now that UArts is closed. I wouldn't even know where I'd be able to do that. Um, but like it means that I can look at a book, one of my own books sometimes, and see that, oh, the printer had like too much water on the roller when he did this particular
Yeah. Yeah.
impression, and that's why the image looks bad. Um, and I can sort of note that and tell my editor like, hey, next time. But I mean, I think like just being curious in general about whatever you're drawn to is like the number one skill you can have. I think about, I don't know if this is going to answer your question or not, but it just occurred to me that like I think about like being an artist as having kind of like a secret. You have like this like really nice secret that you have, that you carry with you everywhere, and it just affects the way you see the world. And it's just like you can um, go to the park and sit on a bench and eat your lunch and think about how to draw a tree or how to write about that tree. And you just see the world in a different way when you're trying to translate it into a way that other people will understand what you're thinking. You have to start thinking differently. Um, and that's what I really like about it. Whether or not you're going to be an illustrator or whatever kind of artist, I think it's worthwhile taking, whatever interests you, whatever you're drawn to. I don't think if you took like a lottery, I don't know, some sort of system where you're like, all right, what book is going to win the New York Times Best Illustrated this year? It's going to be a guy with a thumbprint for a face about a con artist who sold the Eiffel Tower. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think anyone would have bet on that. But it interested me. I was just like, I thought it was a cool story. Um,
I mean,
so
it interested other folks too enough that it landed that position. It became, the thing. Um,
it's out
it's
of print. It's out of print now, unfortunately. But that's how it goes.
thinking of that idea of sort of the guesstimate or the, I don't even want to say it because I think it is like, yeah, you can't really guess in all instances what's going to be popular, what people are going to gravitate towards, etc. But with the idea of when you're working on a book, do you generally have this assumption that like, oh, this book is going to work, or this is risky, or like, do you have some sense before you actually have the book go out there into the world of knowing sort of what kind of reaction people are going to have towards it?
Um, well, I don't, I don't know. I mean, I always have like hopes that things are gonna get like reviewed well and stuff, but I never really know. And a lot of times books get a nice review, but what does that really translate to? I'm not totally sure. Um, And so what I do is a lot of times if I'm not sure about something, and I think this is what I was starting to say, I don't know, like an hour ago when we were talking about that the tour I did with Number One Sam was I would read to kids like stuff that was in progress. And at the time I was writing Goodnight Owl. And Goodnight Owl started, I don't know if you know my book Goodnight Owl, but
Sitting right
it's
here.
about a oh cool. Thank you. It's a book about an owl who's getting ready for bed and he hears a noise in the middle of the night. And the sort of the trick with that book is that the reader can see instantly from the first page, like that it's a mouse that's making the noise.
Yeah.
But the mouse doesn't, or the owl doesn't realize that until the end of the book. And so it's like, it was driving kids crazy. And they were like kind of yelling that like this idiot owl wasn't sort of figuring out this obvious thing. And it made me like really amp that up and really like turn the screws on that owl. And like he, destroyed the house. I think like the first version of that book, he ate the mouse at the end, and then it felt like too much. Like there was like a bunch of books around that time that were sort of aping John's book. I Want My Hat Back, and it just felt like it's kind of like I don't want to hit that tone, you know. Um, and so I, I like it's sort of like the kids still get angry at the end of that book when I read it with them because I'm like, and they both go to sleep. They just like he doesn't eat the mouse. He's not mad at the mouse. He just like once he understands what that unknown thing was, once he can sort of put a name on it and understands it, he's not afraid of it anymore, and it's not bothering him anymore. Which I think you could take your own meaning from that. But like they just go to sleep. He just they both fall asleep in the same bed, and that still drives kids crazy because they're like, but he doesn't have a house anymore. I always end it. I'm always like, and everything was fine in the end. All right, next book. And but boy, why did I start talking about Goodnight Owl? What were you?
I don't
What did
remember.
you ask me?
I'll say my favorite books right now, and one of the things that I'm trying to sort of write a little bit more like, and I think you sort of hit on it, is like not everything has to be happy. Not everything has to be this love, wrapped up in a lovely little package that says, "Hey, everybody's okay in the end." And thinking back to like um, the Brothers Grimm and those fables and things of the sort that were scary dark in a lot of cases, and yet were sort of directed at kids. Um, I sit there and look at the work that I'm writing and sort of what you're talking about, that idea of like the eating of the mouse is not that it's uh, the kids can handle a lot more than what we think they can. And as long as it's done in the right sort of tone, then you're probably okay. Um, has there
Yeah.
been a subject that you worked on that sort of like um, you've had that sort of question in your head of like, oh man, is this too much as you're writing it and pulled back, or has it always been that sort of like you have the reaction of the kids as a marker for yourself of, oh, this was too much, or this is how they're reacting in some capacity?
Um. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like just to sort of underline what you just said there. Yeah. I mean, I think like um, condescending kids books are like my least favorite kind
Yeah.
of book. And they are sort of everywhere, and I think it comes from like a a misplaced distrust and sort of what kids can handle. And I also think there is a kind of author who's like, I'm gonna, you know, uh, I don't want to name any names, but I knew someone who sort of someone else was pitching them a book and was asking for their help with it, and it was this like book about I don't know, some sort of like animal um, research center where they were like doing tests on animals or something like that, and it's pretty grim, like from the jump, and I think my friend said to this person, like I don't know if this maybe come up with like a different um, place to start this story, and the person's response was like, "Well, I'm hoping I can find an editor that's brave enough to do it." And it's like, well, good luck, man. Like, so I think also there. I do think like there are going to be parents who are like, and I'm going to skip this part because I don't want to have to deal with the nightmares that are going to come along for
Yeah,
that.
I don't want to have to plan this thing for the next 10 years.
Right. Um, and I've definitely like with my kids thought, maybe, oh yeah, let's watch this movie. I love this movie as a kid. And I'm like, oh, I didn't remember this part. Yeah, you're um
Good luck tonight.
yeah, but I do think that books that are sort of condescending, like kids can smell it, you know. They can smell it a mile away. The same way that people can. Nobody wants like didactic sort of texts. Um, and I forget what you were asking me, but sorry, I started drawing and I forgot what you were asking me
No,
about.
fine. Let's jump to I want to ask, because you mentioned it, the idea of having things that you love to do, and how they sort of influence you and make you a different artist. I would love to know a little bit about what do you do besides art? Like what is your go-to hobby that is not, which I ask my students this all the time, of like, what do you do besides art? And most of them don't know what to actually say because they're just so deeply embedded in art.
Mm. I remember that feeling in school too. I think like in school is kind of like a special time where um, you get to spend all that time on your art. And so you should take advantage of it. It makes sense. Um, I think when it becomes your job, then it's like, all right, well, what are my hobbies now? Like my hobby is my job.
Yeah.
So now what are my new hobbies? Um, and I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, so my life sort of revolves
Yeah.
around them. Um, and spending time with them, um, and then occasionally spending time with my wife, just the two of us too. Um, but yeah, I'm pretty focused on my artwork, and when I'm not drawing, I'm usually like drawing something in final form and then writing something new at the same time. I'm usually working on more than one thing at a time, but like in different phases, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I can't like really write two things at the same time or work on final art for two things at the same time, but I can write something new while I'm finishing the art on something I wrote before. And but other than that, I do read a lot. I do a ton of reading. I'm pretty into music. I listen to a lot of music. And since having kids, I've gotten really into Lego. Like I have an insane sort of Lego collection, and like
Okay.
I have a train set that goes around our Christmas tree and stuff. And
So you chose a very expensive Lego
it
is,
is expensive.
yeah.
It is expensive, yeah. Um, and but it's super fun too. And I think of it like it relaxes me in the same way that drawing does, because it's just kind of like I'm just following It's kind of like, you know, like sketching can be kind of stressful. Coming up with ideas can be kind of stressful, but like once the art's approved and you're just like executing, drawing is just, you know, it's a breeze.
Yeah, you can
Um,
out.
yeah. And I kind of feel like Lego is like the same way, where I just like figuring it out, like trying to make something on my own is kind of stressful. Like there's a lot of math. um, but uh, just following the instructions and like doing one of the kits is like just super chill, super relaxing. And then I play a lot of video games too. I have like a pretty insane retro video game collection, and I like playing games.
You were probably of the SNES generation, I assume, because of age difference. That if you're a
I
ret-
I have hooked up at my house right now, like hooked up to our TV. I have NES, Super Nintendo, N64, GameCube, PS5, and Switch 2.
all on the
That's
same.
all on our TV.
That's
Yeah, because I have invested, he says with a question mark, in like modern systems that play the stuff on HDMI, like so it looks good on a modern TV.
okay, gotcha. I
Um,
we have a question here that I want to I jumped to. There's Tom Booth. I don't know if you know Tom Booth. He's Tom Will
oh
Tell
yeah,
on
I know Tom's work. Yeah,
yeah. His stuff is
I think I met Tom in person one time at like a, I don't know if he's still watching. He can tell me if we met at a BEA one time. I feel like we did maybe, but
he says, how does Greg approach the promotion of a book? How has it changed in recent years? And does he think there are best practices when it comes to getting your book seen? And so obviously,
hmm.
there's PR teams and things of the sort that get involved. But Tom has a couple of books there's one coming out that is beautiful that I'm sure that this may be related to that. Like, how do I get this out there? But how have you gone about sort of like promotion side? Is there effort from you? Is it something that comes out of the publisher?
Yeah, I think boy, that's a good question that probably everybody has a different answer to, and I, I'm probably not the best equipped to say. I think like pre when I so like in I used to be with Disney Hyperion, and when I was with Disney, at least post Watermelon Seed, which was my first book with them and my first book ever. Um, I always went to BEA and ALA and stuff like that, big conferences. For people that don't know, BEA is a Book Expo America. It doesn't happen anymore. Although I've heard like maybe it's coming back or something. And ALA is the American Library Association, and which I'll be going to this summer. Um, and I would go to conferences and meet librarians. I also go to Texas quite a bit. Um, like for Texas Library Association is a good one to go to and meet a lot of librarians. And so I would do stuff like that. I mean, in terms of like Instagram promotion or whatever, I don't know. I don't know how any of that. Like, I am pretty uncomfortable with social media. This is like a pretty big ask to for me to do this kind of thing.
But you're
It's
doing
just like,
doing fabulous. You don't have to.
oh yeah, thank you. But yeah, I don't really. I don't. I feel like my own sort of like frustration with Instagram or online promotion or whatever is the same as my frustration with it as like a user, where it's just like it's just all ads, and I'm trying to find someone's artwork, but I'm only seeing ads for J. Crew chinos or something. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's kind of hard for me to say, but I would say that when I was first starting out, I would mail people stuff, and I think that people still like to get stuff in the mail. Um, I
Gee,
my first meeting with a kids book editor and art director came from like a silk screened Halloween card that I sent out. to people. In 2009, a couple years before I got an agent, I had some meetings up with a bunch of different art directors and stuff. And Dave Kaplan at Little Brown gave me my first ever meeting. He's my art director now.
Do
Funny
you have
enough, at Little Brown.
do you have say at this point in any of the like promotional materials in the sense of like if they're going to put out a poster or anything of the sort, or is that sort of really?
I mean, if they're going to put out a poster, I'll probably design it, but whether or not they're going to pay for it is always like
Yeah.
is not up to me. No, not really up to me. I think like for this book, I mean, we're talking about it, so I should talk about it, but I am going to be at this bookstore, Words on Warren, in late April. It's in Manhattan. And the butterfly thing that I was drawing before is I think I'm going to do either like a sticker or a silk screen or something from When the Sun Goes Down for people who pre-order the book. I think it might just be like a big sticker, like a 4-inch sticker kind of thing of this like butterfly that I was drawing earlier. And so I'll do stuff like that, maybe like, hey, actually, when I did my favorite promo thing that I did probably was when I did Lucky Duck. My friend K-Fi Steele, who used to live in Philly, but she lives in Europe now. But I don't know if you know K-Fi's work, but she's a brilliant illustrator. And we would like meet up, draw sometimes. And anyway, K-Fi did me a favor and interviewed me about making Lucky Duck. And then some folks that I went to grad school with, some cool people that I went to grad school with, have a little risograph, not little, it's an awesome risograph press in the Seattle area. And I made a little like 16-page, maybe 12 or 16-page zine with like sketches, and K-Fi asked me a bunch of questions, and it was just kind of like a little like how this book was made kind of thing. And I like stuff like that. Like as a reader, I will definitely pre-order a book if there's like an incentive of like, oh, there's this limited edition kind of thing that goes along with it. Yeah,
That's it. It's always this like I think when I first got into kidlit, I feel like there was a lot more money being put behind promotion than what there is nowadays, or the expectation is that social media will do a majority of the work, and I don't know as it necessarily does.
That's what I was going to say before. That's what I was starting to say before, is like when I was with Disney, I would go on tour. They would always like send me on tour and stuff. And I'm sure that people get sent on tour now, but I do think that it's slowed down a bit because of COVID and because of a lot of things that happened during COVID, unrelated to COVID. But I think like, if it makes sense, it's probably good to do. But I also don't think that I would go on tour and it'd be like, especially when Disney was paying the bills, like I'd stay at like the nicest hotel I've ever been in. I would, I would like, there would be a guy with an iPad with my name on it, picking me up at the airport, like driving me wherever I wanted to go, which was usually like Chipotle and then to the hotel. and then I'd visit 2 elementary schools or whatever, and I'd sell 100 books at one and I'd sell 50 books at the other one. And I'm like, well, who's paying for that? Like, how is this? It wasn't like 10,000 books a day or something like that, So I don't know if that model, I just screwed that up. I don't know if that model makes a ton of sense, but for me, the thing that I do is I visit schools, and I do it a lot. And, it just means that like maybe Lucky Duck, like a book that came out almost 2 years ago now. Well, like if I visit a school or a couple schools in an area, then it might sell 300 copies that week or something, and that just like that's going to keep it in print and like keep that thing going, you know? Like if they can see a book that like 2 years later is still, you know, selling 50 copies a week or, you know, I don't know what the numbers are, but like it just like keep it going, you know what I mean? So I think like there's always like there's a big push a lot of times, especially on the publisher's part of like, okay, the book comes out in 2 weeks, like what are we doing? What are we go on this podcast and do this thing? And I think it's more about like staying with it, you know. um what are you doing 6 months after the book comes out to still get it out there,
Yeah.
you know?
When you say staying with it, meaning like just staying active, or meaning what do you mean by staying with it? I follow that analogy.
Like I have a tendency to like once a book comes out and I'm on deadline to do another book or whatever, I forget about that first book. I'm kind of like, well, that book's out. So
Yeah.
and like I think like if I had a criticism of the publishing industry in general or of myself personally, it would be like stick, you know, honor that book that you did all that work for.
Yeah.
And like just continue to try to get it out. So even if it's not like immediately a hit, you know, like there was I'm sure you know the book Dragon Loves Tacos.
Sure.
And you know Dan went to the same school that I went to, and I've met him a couple times. I don't know him super well, but he seems like a really sweet guy. But I had lunch with those guys a couple times, and I think they told me that like that book did nothing when it came out. It like flopped, and it was like a year later, 9 months, a year later, when like some like Facebook group really latched onto it, like, you know, books for young moms, whatever, you know, I don't know what it was exactly. But it really like connected there, and then it like took off, and then it was on the New York Times bestseller list for 10 years. I mean, it's probably still on it today. I don't know, but like
That book is probably, yeah, it's forever got a place on that chart of some sort, because I feel like it's got legs essentially. It's got the ability to hold on for a long time. I mean, the idea of worrying about charts and worrying about sort of like how much a book, you know, how well it does, I think is something that I wish was not always on the mind of the illustrator or the author. Like, you know, at a certain point, I wish we could step back and just say the publisher does all of it. And I know that some publishers are better than others when it comes to promotion and things of the sort. But I sure would love to, like, not necessarily rest on my laurels when it comes to that kind of stuff, but to let the book just kind of naturally do what it needs to do without having to have tons of, you know, I have to go promote it all over the place, or I have to do all these other little odds and ends to somehow make that book sell. But we're getting like pessimistic now. Okay.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to Tom's question, but I would just say like whatever feels natural. And for me personally, I like process stuff. So it doesn't need to be a zine that you get your buddies from grad school to print for you, but it, you know, just like a Substack post or something like that. I like reading about how people made things. And like so I'm doing a Substack thing about I have a very what would be the word, unkempt Substack. um
It,
but I have a post in mind about When the Sun Goes Down, where I talk about the different covers that we did and show the different sketches and stuff, and I like stuff like that, so that's what I want to do.
explain to me Substack. I know that you don't have to.
I can't. I don't
Okay,
know. I'm not
it's
the
a
person to do that.
it's a blog, but I literally don't know much about like it at all. Is it a
I need to grab a little bit of water. I'll be right back and think about that.
AJ says, let's see. On that note, Mark, did you let Molly's bookstore know if you're in for March 14th? I am waiting for. We'll wait for him to come back. AJ, I'm waiting for someone at my son's school to give me a date on something else. If I don't hear back by tonight, I'll let you know, and maybe we'll have to figure out something else.
Oh, all right. I'm back. Sorry, Mark. I
No worries.
had a new bottle of ink, and I usually water my ink down, and I guess I don't know. I just got talking to you, and I opened a new one, and I forgot to water it down, so my nib got like kind of clogged.
Yes. Yeah. No, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but
Oh, you asked me to explain Substack. I mean, I don't really know. I think it's like basically if Blogspot still existed, I would use Blogspot. I had a Blogspot for a long time that I liked, and then for whatever reason they just deleted it off the face of the internet. But yeah, I mean, I think like in theory, it's a good way to keep in touch with people. But I don't pay for anybody. I don't like, and I get a little frustrated, kind of like the same way I do with Instagram when I start to read something and then it's like, oh, the text gets all gray and it's like, this is for paid subscribers. It's like, well, okay. And
the
I'm never going to look at this again because I, I just like, if I subscribe to 10 things that I like, that's like $50 a month. And I don't know. It's
no,
not what I'm going to do.
I'm a person who I don't want to. People have asked like, could this Gap and Doodle thing be, like to make money off of it? Is there a way to put it behind a paywall? And I don't like that idea in general of a paywall. I don't like the idea that. I mean, obviously, like I have to make money somehow, but the that idea of as an educator somehow putting a gate in the way of people to get access to just some basic information seems really problematic to me. Is there
Yeah.
now you said you did teach for a little bit, obviously, but have you ever considered going back to it at any point, or is it sort of in the past now?
Um, well, first of all, hello to your cat, I guess.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that your cat there?
I didn't
um,
that is as it's loud here, but I didn't realize.
um, yeah, I taught part-time for 7 years, I think, at UArts. And obviously I taught at that like community art center I was telling you about. I don't think I'll be teaching at UArts again, but I kind of stepped away from my class there just because picture books were just demanding enough. And like, it just like, oh, if I was going to go on tour or go to Texas for a week of school visits or something, it meant that I had to miss class and then I had to coordinate someone to cover my class. And it just like became untenable.
Yeah,
But I do really like interacting with the students and I do like teach, and there is part of me that thinks there's a community arts center in our neighborhood where actually my wife has taught before. She's taught screen printing there because she's, in addition to making comics, she is a really talented printmaker. And I have thought like, oh, maybe when my kids are just a little bit older, I will teach like a some sort of class there because I taught at UArts. I did teach silkscreen. I did teach illustration one time. I taught a continuing ed class for portfolio development for children's book people, like for aspiring children's book people. And I would like to teach a class like that again. That would be kind of cool. I've thought about maybe teaching a class or even writing a book about how to make a picture book. I'm not sure. I probably would teach the class first and then try to make the book based on that. But
You do have a wealth of knowledge at this point that could be very easily translated into
yeah, I think
wide.
I get a little skeeved out sometimes by the people who are like who do that kind of stuff. But I I could do it in, the book that like really unlocked the door for me was Yuri Sholovitz's Writing with Pictures. Have you ever seen that book?
Yep. In fact,
And
the background over on a table in the background here.
yeah, I love that book. And I've returned to it many times. And Aliki made a book for kids about how a book gets made. It might be called like How a Book Gets Made even. Um, and I do get the question sometimes at school visits, like kids will ask, um, how'd you make the book? And I'll be like, well, you write something and then you think about it, and then I'll realize like they're like, no, how did you get the paper stuck to the cardboard?
Yeah, yeah,
Like how did you do that part? And I'm like, oh, I don't do any of that.
yeah. For anybody
um,
writing with pictures book here, How to Write and Illustrate Children's Books by early Yuri Sholovitz.
Yuri Shulevitz, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He
that's
actually just passed away not too long ago, unfortunately.
it's great. It's got
Um,
a great visual representation of sort of how books work and what to avoid and what to stick with and whatnot. So
yeah, there's like maybe 30% of that book that is not super relevant anymore because it's about
yeah,
um,
and
photographing for color separations and stuff. But the part that is about actually composing and coming and pacing and all that kind of stuff is sort of timeless.
there was my wife got that for me for Christmas because it was mentioned by somebody, and I read through. There was a point where I got to, and I'm like, oh, I know this stuff just from teaching or through experience and whatnot. But there was some sections of it I was like, oh man, I need to rethink how I'm writing or how I'm illustrating. And I think a lot of the problem is that I stick too close to the script at this point and don't get a little philosophical with the visual, like get a little bit conceptual with what the visual is. And I think part of that is just historically the type of book that I've worked on has been maybe a little bit younger or what have you. And so reading that book was really like enlightening when I had the chance to read it at that moment. I haven't gone back to it yet. She's probably upstairs thinking the same thing, that I need to go back to that book of some sort. Does your wife weigh in on your picture books? Like, does she not necessarily have a say, but does like, is she at a point now where she like has seen you work in the industry long enough that she can go like, oh, this is what I would do with it, and has influenced your approach?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. We're studio mates. So, and we live together. um,
I would hope,
so
yeah.
yeah, she sees everything first, and she's definitely my first editor. And I've learned that anytime she says like, I'm not so sure about like I don't know if this is that I should just listen to her because I will if I'm like no I don't care I'm gonna push back on that. It's like the first thing that gets brought up in like whatever meeting or whatever email or whatever I get. Um, so yeah, we talk to each other about artwork all the time, and I think we have been we started dating in 2007. And so we've been together like in a relationship for 19 years. And when we were in the program together, we shared a studio. I mean, with 10 other people, but like, um, yeah, it's just we've had a bunch of studios together. I don't think since school I haven't had an art studio that didn't have that Kay wasn't a part of. We so we were at UArts together. She's a year younger than me, but she was actually a year ahead of me because I did the 2 years of AmeriCorps.
Oh yeah.
And after school, we got a studio at this place. It used to be in Chinatown in Philly. It's called Space 1026. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. When you were in Rhode Island, when you went to RISD, what year was it? What years did you go to RISD?
96 through 2000.
So so you like did you go to Fort Thunder when you were there? Did you like know about the Fort Thunder crew
Uh,
and all that stuff?
I went to Fort Thunder not for a concert. Like, went there and poked around. I ran with a vegan straight edge crew that did not go out and party much, and so
Okay.
Fort Thunder was a thing, and the there's definitely lots of stuff that happened there, but it was not the crowd or the scene that I was with. Um, and
Okay.
so I know of it. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Why were you? Wait, I meant to ask you that because you were a music person. You like music, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
etc. What kind of music are we talking?
Oh, I mean all kinds. Like these days I feel like I was really into punk music when I was younger. I still like punk music, but I feel like I saw a meme once. It was called the Punk Crossroads, and it was like the road comes to the crossroads, right? And if you listen to punk music, you either go into disco, you start listening to disco, or you start listening to folk or like country, and that's kind of where I went. Not country so much, but like folk music. So I'm super into a lot of folk music stuff now.
Uh,
Although I still, the Clash and the Ramones are like still my two favorite bands, probably.
what
Um,
punk? What kind of punk are we talking? But Clash and Ramones make that answers.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Like since high school, the Clash, the Pixies, or just Pixies, I guess. The Breeders. I'm a huge Breeders fan.
Mm, okay.
Um, and anyway, yeah, when I lived in Rhode Island, I um did an internship. Basically, I saw this guy's artwork and I really liked it. His name's James Quigley. He lived in Providence at the time, and he had a print shop that he ran with this guy Rich in Pawtucket, which is like just north of Providence. And anyway, I basically was like, "Hey, I want to be better at screen printing, and I will do anything." So they had me like just wash out screens and um, help around the shop, like 1 day a week,
Yeah.
basically. And James Quigley taught me how to do transparencies, like how to mix colors. Basically, I didn't really learn that in school too much. And he's an amazing draftsman, and he was just like one of these people that um, he was like one in a long line of people who helped me when I was younger by just like letting me be around. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just letting me hang out and be around. And
Earn through osmosis. Yeah.
yeah, and just like he was an artist and he had a space and a big warehouse and he made his living by drawing pictures and selling prints and stuff. And it was just like I never knew anyone like that when I was growing up. And he's not the only one. I mean, I could rattle off like 10 people who did that for me. And so anyway, he wasn't super into Fort Thunder. I don't think he was, at least. We didn't really talk about it. But when I was up there, I was already into the music of Lightning Bolt and stuff. I knew about them from seeing them when I was in college. And I really liked Brian Chippendale's print work that he was doing. And actually, when I had a space at Space, that's what I was saying. When I had a space at 1026, Kay and I, it was a studio that used to be in Chinatown. It's now in like North Philly, but it's still called Space 1026. We had a huge Brian Chippendale piece in our studio because he had like a show there like 5 years before we got there, and just made this enormous print collage on that basically covered an entire wall of our studio, and he left it there because I think he couldn't move it. But I put one of his books into Goodnight Owl, or one of his records into Goodnight Owl, and I know I communicated with him once, and he told me that he saw it and he appreciated it. So it's nice.
I'm going to look where it's hidden.
There's like a bunch of records on the floor in one spread where the owl is like, gotta get a drink of water, is like holding a trash can over his head.
Yep.
And there's like 8 records maybe on the floor. That's actually like a Q&A on my website. So many people have like, or a FAQ. So many people have like emailed me being like, I can name 6 of these records. What are these other 2?
Is that the Ramones? It's gotta be the Ramones. Now that, you know what, to be honest, I never connected those were real albums until now I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh yes, of course.
That's like what, Rocket to Russia, or whatever that first record is called. And the Clash is Give 'Em Enough Rope. And I see Fugazi's Argument there. And
isn't it, wait, which one's Fugazi? So it sounds like, oh yeah, okay. Because I was, when I was in school, we were, vegan, straight edge turds, let's put it that way. And so we do a lot of like hardcore punk, post-punk, etc. And so like I remember going to Fugazi, I remember going and seeing all these bands, but what's funny is there's none of them happened at Fort Thunder. They're always at these little small venues. There was a place called the Living Room that was in Providence that was real shady, let's put it that way, at the time. And I remember going and seeing bands there, but I have a feeling that there's probably some crossover music-wise. It's always, you never know when you ask music to kidlit folks, like sometimes it is pretty like basic, and then sometimes it's really like heavy stuff that you never know which way it's going to lean.
I actually don't love talking about it. Like, not that I mind this. I mean, I'm fine to talk about, but I get a little like, I feel like people get a certain kind of person gets judgmental about it, and I think it's like such a personal thing that I don't know. I just like, I get kind of turned off. So sometimes I'll just be like, oh, I really like the Frozen soundtrack or something, just to like, just to like kind of shut the conversation down. If I feel like they're gonna be kind of a jerk about it.
I had this I forget who it was I had on recently, where I told them my what I refer to as crotch punch music, which the concept is that when I was in college, I would listen to like, if I knew what I listen to now when I was in college, and I could somehow go in the future, my college self would show up now and punch me in the crotch because of the music. And so it's like the equivalent of like John Denver, or my wife doesn't like it, but I really have gotten into Meatloaf's I Would Do Anything for Love, but I Won't Do That. It's so over the top cheesy that I just kind of love it.
Is that the Bad Out of Hell 2 album? Yeah. My dad, I don't have that record, but I remember my dad listening to that all the time.
Or like, I know that I would have hated it back then, but like one of my favorite songs, whenever it's on the radio, it gets blasted, is Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett. And it's like, my college self would show up and be like, what are you doing? Punch, 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 and teach me a lesson. But I kind of love that music now in some weird, fascinating way. And so I refer to it as crotch punch music, and it is that kind of stuff that you're talking about. It's like, it's got a specific era, and it's lighthearted, and it's not it's not being taken in a serious manner. If that makes any.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. That's cool, man. You know, everybody likes different stuff.
so
I don't have much experience with that stuff, but when I'm drawing, I listen to a lot of classical music. Like I listen to you know, like Bach, or if I'm feeling feisty, like Prokofiev or something. Um, but I really like Gillian Welsh, the folk artist. I really
mhm.
like her a lot, and Town Van Zant is one of my favorites. And sort of like more chill stuff these days. I've been kind of into this Irish lady, Lisa O'Neill, um, lately too. So, you know, I like all kinds of different things. But we have a dance party every night at our house. Um, Something that one of my friends who had kids before me told me. I sort of like solicited advice from my friends with kids before my first daughter was born, and asked people to make a little video. Um, and he and his wife, the little video that they recorded was with their kid. They have a dance party every night, and they really recommend it as like just a way to sort of like connect after dinner, and it sort of gets out the zoomies like before
Yeah,
bath time and bedtime and stuff. And so we've done it with our daughters every night, um, since I don't know, since Una was our first daughter was like 6 months old or something. And it's great. I totally recommend it.
that's pretty darn cute. I don't know if are you a good dancer though, or is it? I mean, I
I
know it's
mean,
not about a good dancer. I understand that like you can be a goof during it, but are you technically a good dancer?
no, no, but I have no, but I have fun. You
Okay,
know, I have fun.
okay,
Um, and yeah, right now, like it's always like each of the girls will get one song and it'll be on rotation for 3 months minimum, right? Um, and so over the summer, I think when school started, they've never seen the K-pop Demon Hunters movie. They're too young for it, but they've heard about it, just you know, through the osmosis of the zeitgeist. And so the Golden and Takedown songs are like huge on the rotation from K-pop Demon Hunters. And my one daughter is like has never seen Nightmare Before Christmas, but loves the This Is Halloween song. That's always like on rotation too.
that's a. I can think back to like my childhood, and there was a song by Wings
Mm.
that was like that same kind of like we
Band
played
on the Run.
it over. I don't remember what the name of the song was. Uh,
The only Wing song I know is Band on the Run.
no, it's yeah, it wasn't that one. It's on that. It's on like Wings' greatest hits. I have it here somewhere in the background, but
Okay.
silly song that we would dance to. I will. Now, are your kids going to watch this?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna throw out a bit of advice that I don't know if anybody said this one to you, and if anybody's listening, this is a bit of advice that I heard later in life that I wish I knew. Little kids, close your ears if you're listening. Is when the tooth fairy becomes part of the equation, and I don't know if that's already. I assume at 5 that's already happened. But someone told me, or I heard somewhere that you say that the tooth fairy delivers money under their pillow depending on how many teeth they have to pick up that night, that they have to equally distribute the money around to all the kids with all the teeth. And that way you don't
Mm.
going like, oh, we paid $1 last time. Do you have any dollars? I don't, like check your wallet, see if you have any dollars or whatever it may be, that it's independent of a specific like set amount. And I was like, oh, that's so smart. And I wish someone,
Oh, I see.
God.
Okay.
And so it's like sometimes it's a cookie, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's it's all sorts of odds and ends. And I was like, that's pretty genius to think in that manner. Um,
Okay. I thought what you were saying was um that every kid in the house who had teeth would get something, because
oh
we
no,
had
no.
our girls are they're like just shy of 2 years apart. And
Yeah.
so like I buy everything in double, or my wife buys everything in double. Like if you buy a toy, you buy
Two. Yeah.
two of them. So I think like um, when the tooth fairy actually hasn't come to our house yet. My daughter
Oh.
has some wiggles though. She's got some wiggly ones, so I think she's gonna come soon. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
probably we'll have to pay them both off. You know.
There's well, then the second one gets. Oh, I guess when they're old enough, then the second one gets uh, paid off as well. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's there's little weird things like that that I've picked up throughout life. Same thing with like since you have girls, you don't know about it, but or maybe you do, but you know what a PPTP is?
No, I don't.
It's primarily
I
directed.
don't know if I want to know.
Yeah, the little boys. It's a little cone of fabric that you set over the boy, so when you're changing their diaper, you don't get sprayed.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And it's called a PPTP. However, in reality, like we had some, never ever used them. It was more effort than it's worth. The kid wiggles around. There were like all these little things like that that when you have a kid, you're like, oh, I need this, and then you really don't. And it takes the advice of some elder to basically point out like, hey, you don't need all these fancy gadgets and things. You just need a dance party, or you need, like there's things that you need that are more important than a PPTP.
Yeah, I think the dance party thing, like it's it's kind of on its face, kind of silly, but um it's like a way for everybody to connect at the
Yeah.
end of it, at the end of what's likely a stressful day. Like it's just like everyone's like stressed about their own things. And it's just like 10 to 15. We always do three songs. Even though there's four of us, mom and dad alternate our picks. And and we have certain songs, like I have um songs that I sing to my girls that we all know by heart because I've been singing it to them
Yes.
since they were little. And um it's just like it's just like you can shake off the day a little bit. um
Oh,
it's good.
I want
I'm
that.
glad we do it.
Yeah. I want. I want to. I don't want people to watch me dancing. There's there's things in life that people don't need to see for their own safety. We were. I play racquetball with a friend periodically, and one of the things we were talking about is like the amount of goofy poses that we end up in as late 40-year-olds trying to hit the ball. And I imagine the same thing would happen with me trying to dance, that I don't ever want to see the playback because the internal embarrassment that would happen in that situation.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is like, well, certainly in your living room, no one's watching, but I mean, in general, no
That's
one is watching.
yeah,
Everyone is like so concerned about, they're all like so concerned about what other people think about them. They're not thinking about you at all,
yeah. No, it's totally true. It's totally true. Yeah, no one cares that much in life, and if they do, that's on them. But I also don't want my wife to record it in some way and use it as blackmail. It's the reason why I put off getting my wisdom teeth out so long in life, was I was afraid someone would record it and make fun of me for the rest of my life.
Mm.
I'm reading the comments here to make sure I'm not missing here. Yeah, okay, no questions. Good. So with future projects, with the sort of goal of where you want to go, I'm shifting subjects. I'm big tangent right here.
Sure.
But are there things that like are on the back burner, or things that you've always wanted to do that you finally are starting to see the opportunity? Or I mean, obviously, like writing books, you have books that you want to get produced and turned into something, but are there things that are like even a different type of book or a different opportunity, like graphic novel, adult graphic novel, whatever it may be? Are there things like that you're like, oh man, I can't wait at some point?
Yeah, I have I'm in like kind of a cool place right now creatively where I have I think I mentioned earlier I'm finishing up the ice cream book, and I have a book under contract after that I have to finish this spring. And it's great. I'm super excited about both those books. And like I said, I have some new nonfiction books that I'm writing too, but um I am kind of just like in a pretty open spot where I have a few different ideas and I'm going to decide what I want to work on next. Which I know that's like a pretty, um, what do you call, privileged place to be. Um, in terms of like stuff I've never done before that I want to try, I feel like every project that I take on is a little bit of like a pushback against the last thing that I did. Do you know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
you're like, I did this last book in ink, doing layers, and so the next book I want to do, I want to draw with a dip pen and color with watercolor. Because I haven't done that before and I want to try it. Um, and so I think like I'm always kind of, it's like probably a little frustrating because I'm like every time I do something, I'm like, oh, it's the first time I've ever done it. We'll see how it
Yeah.
goes. um, and so it keeps you interested, I guess. Um, I do have an adult graphic novel, or I don't know. I have this project that comes from like a personal family story that I don't really want to get into, to be honest. But
Yeah.
like I'm sort of on the fence as to whether it should be a book for adults or if it should be a book for kids. And my most recent ideas for it and the things that I've written for it recently is that it's more of a book for kids. And it's been kind of interesting, like to take something that I sort of assumed was going to be inappropriate for kids, and like I would have to, I don't know, just change things about it, um to to sort of like translate that into something for kids. So I haven't done it yet. I'm still working on it. I do think that there's like sometimes people talk about projects a little too early. um but yeah, I have a bunch of stuff I want to try. I liked making the Bologna and Friends graphic novels, but I just don't. I, I want to do more of them, but they are a lot of work. Even drawing them as simply as Bologna and Friends was drawn, it's still like 96 pages times three is still a lot of pages to draw.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Um,
Earl and Worm, like, is there a point in my own thinking, and I'm not, I have a different approach, but I I always worry that the longevity of a project like that would just wear very thin on me. And yet I have an idea for something that probably needs to be a graphic novel. And so it becomes this question of like, okay, well, do I actually pursue it at some point, or you know, is it meant for someone else? Is it all that kind of stuff? Is that something that there's a threshold for you when you hit a wall and you just go like, oh, I'm done with that project. I need to move on. Um, like, I guess the bigger question really is just sort of like, how long do you stay with the project? Is there a scope in which you get bored?
hmm. um, I mean, I do think that like you you get to a point. I don't know if you have this, but for me personally, there's a point where I'm like 90% done with a book where I start to hate it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and I'm just like, why did I do this? Why did I make this decision? Usually for me, it's like, why did I decide to do a technique I've never done before? And I don't know how to make it work. Why did I choose rubber stamps or whatever? And then it will be, uh, you know, then the book will show up or I'll get the proofs or whatever, and I'll sort of fall back in love with it. I'll like sort of figure it out. Um, usually, that's hopefully.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't
Um,
have fallen in love with them post, but that's each their own.
right. Well, I mean, it's like you see the mistakes and stuff, but at that point, you sort of have like come to terms with like, well, that's what it is, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a book that I've made where I haven't thought like, oh, I wish I could go back and change that one page or change that drawing or whatever, but that's just not how it works, you know. That was like that's what you did. That's what it is. Um and yeah, so I kind of lost my train of thought, but yeah, I think like I end up like hating the stuff for a while and then coming back to it. And I don't know that I'm like done with it as much as I'm just like when you're executing for it really is like executing. It can start to feel like homework, you know, especially if you're like going back and making corrections on something and it's like, oh, layer 54 needs its opacity boosted back to 100% or something. It's just like it's just like not what I love about drawing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um
Is there with the idea of edits or that idea of changing things? Do you? I mean, obviously stuff has to go through edits and has to be changed, but is there some sort of way that you've worked out that allows? Because I have the same concern with my work of edits always feel aggravating at first, and obviously they're for a good reason, and they're you have to have faith in your art directors and your editors that there's a good reason for the change, but I still just the initial like, hey, they want this change, they don't see my vision, still like gets me to this day, and I know
mhm.
it's a false like ego or narcissistic sort of like I'm right and they don't know what they're thinking. But do you accept edits at this point, or are you sort of in that same boat where you still struggle a little bit when that email comes in?
um yeah, I mean I think it's like a process, right? Like it's I think like everybody, you know, it can I, you know, I've made a lot of books. Like I think you kind of like I when I turn in a book now, I just know that I've turned in the like 95% done version of it. And I know that there's going to be an email that comes back from copy editing that tells me that you know, and these copy editors are really good at like finding the stuff you forgot about or you
Yeah.
didn't see because you've looked at it for too long. You know, I sent an email to my art director at Penguin last week where it was just like, I have looked at this too long. I can't look at it anymore. Will you look at it and tell me what I need to do? Um, and you know, Steve's very kind and like sort of does that for me. But so no, I guess I don't really go into it thinking like this is done. I always kind of like I know that that's coming. Now if I get like an email that has like a 40
Yeah.
or usually it's like a PDF with like those comments, you know, like little yellow sticky notes on a
Yep.
PDF. Um, and if there's like a million of them, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Usually that's not the case. I mean, usually my stuff is pretty much done, you know, like um, and I have a lot of the copy editing stuff that I get sometimes is because I'm writing too, is you know, this maybe doesn't make perfect grammatical sense or this isn't like the standard the I don't know the Chicago ALA standard or whatever and if you were to follow that it would be this um and usually I can for stuff like that I can decide like all right well I think it's important that we really get the contractions right here because this is made for early readers or I'm going to stet this because I it's a voice thing and I just think it
Yep.
sounds better that way um you know, but like I said, like I always like show everything to Kay, and she looks over everything, and she's really good at like sort of finding like little inconsistencies and stuff. So um I don't know. I guess I just go into it like sort of knowing that that's it, that's part of the process, and it's not really done until the final book shows up, and then it's done, and you just hope that you didn't miss something, you know.
I mean, the takeaway that I get from that personally is that idea of, I love the term 90%, or the it's 90% done. It's a 90%,
Hmm.
whatever that may be, because that idea of, when I finish it and I send it in, I do have that inkling of like, well, it's done, and I don't have to think about it anymore. And in reality, that's not, that is not factual. There is a lot of work that still has to be done on the book, and there's books that I've handed in where, like, there was one that I worked on that I said to some students the other day that I painted the entire book, a 54-page book, in 15 days, which,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, you're like, wow, that's crazy fast. But then we edited it for 2 months, and there are tweaks. Now, part of that is not because the book was bad of any sort. It just needed weird little tweaks that the author wanted. I can tell you behind the scenes who it was and what it was, like why.
Mm.
But at the time I was like, I can't believe it. I did this in 15 days, and then come find out, well, that's only the beginning of all of it. So,
Right. Yeah, I think even the When the Sun Goes Down book, um I sent it to a couple of my friends, doing the old blurb beg, and
yeah.
I think even the version that I sent them is called, like, in my Dropbox, is called like the 99% version or something, because it's like, it's just not, I'm not sure if it's all the way done.
Is there when thinking about the writing side of things, I'm wondering a little bit, because I've written 2 books, but they were 10 years ago. It's been a long time, and I'm trying to figure out who
Oh,
I
is
am.
that right? Is that right? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't rub it in. No.
Sorry.
Oh, really?
Wow, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Who would have thought? No, they were great. They were fun to write and things of the sort. But I've been so busy with other stuff. I haven't really put time into writing in a way that I really should have. And I'm trying to adjust for that now. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things and become a writer again. And I'm wondering, you went to school for writing, and you went to school for art, and you have those 2 backgrounds. Writing was not my cup of tea of any sort when I was in school.
Mhm.
I thought I could, but I just really wasn't a good writer. And now I'm sort of trying to figure out who I am and how to make that happen. And I'm wondering, do you have tips or tricks for someone who potentially isn't as comfortable in their written skin as their visual skin? That, I don't like the word skin in that statement. And there, that feels more comfortable writing, or I'm sorry, making art than writing, because you have the ability to do both. You are so skilled in both that I'm wondering, like, is there a tip or a trick that you go like, oh, here's the way to think of it?
Um, hmm. I mean, I think the thing, because to be honest, like, people send me stuff that they write a lot, or like talk to me about like book ideas that they have, or whatever, a lot. And I I think the thing that I see a lot of times is that people overwrite. They just like write too much. And when I write, I I it's kind of, it's just kind of dawning on me now. But it's a lot like the way that I draw, where I do like a big swath, like a big line, like in Photoshop, I mean, like when I draw digitally, and then like go back in and carve out the line with an eraser tool. And I feel like writing for me is the same way. Like I um am just like cutting it to the bone, getting it as
Meaning,
as
Meaning that you have a lot of text there first and then you edit?
Yeah, yeah. Like I'll start writing. And you're writing I always start with words. Sometimes I'll start with like, oh, I drew this character a lot. Let me come up with a story for it. But but most of the time it's like starting in Google Docs or Word or something, writing. Um, it usually starts in the sketchbook and goes there. But yeah, I feel like overwriting is a big part of it. Have you ever heard of this thing called what is the phrasing? Fantastic binomial. Have you ever heard of that before?
No.
It's this guy. What's his first name? Giano Rodari. Have you ever heard of him? He was like an Italian writer for kids books. Really, really great stuff. And he wrote a book that Matt Forsyth illustrated a couple years ago or last year called. I'm looking for it on my shelf. Hold on. It's called A Grammar of Fantasy, and I recommend it if you're looking to sort of get inspired about writing.
Right.
Um, and Matt Forsyth is like, and I don't know if you know his illustrations, but
I
he's
sure do.
incredible.
Yeah.
And the fantastic binomial is just like taking two ideas and putting them together. Like you could say, I don't know. It's like any illustration prompt, really, but it's for writing. You could say like street giraffe, and then like what is that? What do you come up with when you do that? What are those two like concepts when you push them together? And he has there's this early on in the book that there was this like little game he had too, where that I've used a lot since I read that book. Where he would like just write a word and then make like an acrostic out of it. Is that what this is like? Where you basically like write a word and then come up with different words from each letter.
Yeah. That's an acrostic.
And he would sort of like write a story out of that. Like use that sort of like stream of consciousness acrostic play to come up with story ideas, and just like just kind of play that way. And I mean, the thing that I tell kids when they ask me like how to be a writer is I tell them that they don't really need to worry about that too much right now. They just need to worry about being readers, just like read as much as possible. And so I have a friend of mine who's a really talented writer, and he always just says like, good stuff in, good stuff out. You read good stuff that you like, and you'll end up making stuff like it because it's just like becomes part of you.
Yeah. My big challenge is I have plenty of ideas. I overwrite. You're right. That is a classic. I'm a classic
Really?
of overwriting. And my agent knows it. And many times you need less words. And I think part of it is like the
Well,
edit.
so am I too. It's
Yeah.
like you got to go in and cut it out. That's the thing.
I'm not good at cutting. I'm not good at knowing what to cut and when to cut.
Mm.
And I need practice in sort of like honing stuff down. Like I do have a book that it was crazy long and I sliced it in half basically, and it still held up, but it was still way too long. And now I'm going back and changing it all together, and it's a slow and cumbersome process for me. As like artwork, you ask me to like edit something in artwork and I can do it in a second, and I don't even question it because it's just been built into the system essentially. Do you feel more comfortable artwork wise or writing wise at this point?
I think I'm like much more comfortable drawing. Like in terms of just like if I knew I had an hour to make something,
Yeah.
if I could say like after an hour I'll have something good, I would pick drawing. Like if I needed something good versus writing, where I'm like I might end up with nothing at the end of it. But when I don't know, when I'm at a party or something and someone asks me what I do, like is making small talk and asks me what I do, I say I'm a writer. So whatever that means, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's like, oh, what do you write? And I'm like, oh, I write kids books. And they're like, oh, how do you find illustrators for that? And then I'll say, oh, well, I draw the pictures too. And like I don't lead with
art.
I'm an illustrator. I don't know why that is necessarily, because I think I'm known as like an author illustrator, you know. But I think that's just like I think it goes back to Yuri's book, Yuri Sholovitz's book, like writing with pictures. You know, I do think like, and I think about like a big influence of mine and someone I was lucky enough to spend some time with is Ed Emberley. And Emberley always identified himself as a bookmaker, you know, and he was a printmaker, and you know he won a Caldecott for his book that he made with woodblocks, but he didn't identify necessarily as a printmaker, but as a bookmaker, and that's kind of how I feel too. Like I make books.
How did you know Ed Emberley?
I got to meet Ed through. I have a here. Hold on my bulletin board here. I can reach it. If you can see if it'll be in the camera. There's a picture of me and Ed. I have a good friend who's a librarian who lives up near where Ed used to live, and was close to him and his family. And she knew that he was a big influence on mine because I, you know, have always talked about him as, you know, those were the books that I read at the public library. My mom had to work, and I would stay. I was like a latchkey kid that would stay at the library for a couple hours after school before my mom got off work. Then I would draw from his books, and I guess you can't see it because of the ring light, but anyway, it's not that great of a photo anyway. And Rebecca, his daughter, who's an illustrator too. I don't know if you know Rebecca's work. She
I don't.
and Ed have made a few books together, and she makes her own books too. And his son, Michael, you know, he won the Geisel Medal a few years ago as an illustrator. He lives in Ireland. But anyway, my librarian friend just introduced me to Rebecca over email or Facebook or something, and then we just happened to vacation like every year in the same place that's like near where he lived. And um we, through my librarian friend, she connected us, and my wife and I went to their beautiful home that was built in like the 1600s, and his studio was upstairs, and Barbara was there, his wife. He was a great writer and maker of picture books, and I got to spend the afternoon like showing him books that I made, and he showed me stuff, and he had like notes from Richard Scarry like taped to his wall with little drawings of Huckle, and so it was just like a magical experience. And
He's one of those people that just like, yeah, he's an icon, and so innovative for his time and whatnot. When he's no longer with us, correct?
No, Ed is still alive.
Okay, who am I thinking of then that passed away?
His wife did just pass away.
Maybe that's what I'm getting mixed up. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, and it was just cool to just connect with him. He was asking me questions. He was asking me about, how do you think I should sell this or package this, or like he was. It was a trip, man. It was a real trip for sure. I've gotten to meet. I met Tommy once too. Tommy Unger. I mean, he passed away obviously, but that was just at like a book signing kind of thing. But it was still really cool.
The
Those people are like, they're like heroes. They're like living legends.
yeah, there's a lot of folks that I feel like I missed out the opportunity to enjoy their work the way that um, I guess I should have at some point. Like, this is gonna sound really stupid, but like Eric Carl. Now that I like collage stuff, Eric Carl, like I should have paid more attention to Eric Carl. That's
Mm,
my life.
yeah.
And not to say that um, there isn't, that I don't have love for it now, but there was a point wherein I kind of, I don't want to say poo-pooed Eric Carl, but collage in general, I was not super keen on because I thought of it as like photo collage, where you take scraps out of a magazine, and I just didn't quite understand it. And now I wish that I had paid more attention to the works of these folks when I was younger, because it probably would have influenced me quite heavily. Now, obviously, you come to it later in life and you find these folks, and then you go, "Oh, I wish I had, connected those dots." And in reality, you're finding it now, and that's okay. But there are a lot of folks like Ed Emberley I didn't know about until quite later in life.
Mm,
Wish I knew his books earlier on. But part of it is just I wasn't in the industry, so I had nothing to really compare it to, of sort. So
yeah.
um,
I mean, I
who?
think that's the thing that I love about Ed, and he's sort of like a North Star for me. There's a couple authors and illustrators who I just think of like as sort of well, like North Stars that I just sort of what would they do, um and one of the things I love about him is like how varied his stuff was.
Yeah,
Just like he he obviously he did Drummer Hoff, we won the Caldecott for, and then followed it up with the How to Draw books. um but those books look nothing like each other. And he does these like delicate. This bird looks so weird. Um, these like delicate. I started drawing big, which I'm like not super good at. I like drawing small. To make him angry because he looks so weird. Um, these delicate pen and ink drawings, and he made this book called Wizard of Op, which is like a comic book, picture book mashup about op art, and it's all black and white, and it is wild. And it's just like, how did I not know about this book when I was a kid? And it's just totally wild. Um, and
the one, we have this alphabet book that he did.
oh
Uh,
yeah, the ABCs with the crocodile on the cover.
yeah, and I don't even the cover disappeared at some point, and so we just have the the hard cover, and it's like just got his name on the front, and I think like a little icon. It doesn't have much to it, but then
Mm,
inside is this amazingly beautiful alphabet book, and it's one of those ones where it's got this like weird. It's a little. Oh, what's the word? What's Salvador Dali? That's
surrealist.
surrealist. Yeah, it's a little surrealist in moments, and you know,
I'm gonna show. I'm
cool.
holding up on the feed now the Wizard of Op. If you look up at your iPad, you'll see like the comic stuff that's going on, and like it's um it's wild, man. And this book I got like discarded from the library copy. Um, and it was published in 1975. Like, and it's comics in a picture book. Like, who would have thought? You know?
Ahead of their time.
Yeah.
Um, are there artists today that you look at and you go like, these are the people that we're going to be I mean, obviously we're going to be celebrating a lot of people, but you in particular are going to be celebrating years down the line, going like, oh man, I was there when I first saw this book.
Oh, thank you. Are you asking me like contemporary illustrators that I
Yeah,
like a lot?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of people. I pulled out like a whole stack um of people, but they're mostly gone now. They're mostly people that have passed. But yeah, I mean, I think like Carson for sure. Um, I think she's like inspired a whole sort of generation. Carson Ellis, she's
Yep.
inspired a whole generation of illustrators, and she's just like such a force. She has such a presence, and
Rumpelstiltskin, the Mac Barnett version that
yeah, we have that one. Yeah, we have that one.
that opening spread or when Rumpelstiltskin's name gets said, it's this giant spread with his face is so good.
Yeah, my 3-year-old loves yelling Rumpelstiltskin.
That or there's
um,
a page in there where it's like the hay, the biggest collection of hay that she has to turn into gold. That is just
oh yeah.
absolutely
Well,
image.
there's like so much stuff too. Like if you look close, like on the list of names and stuff that the Queen has, you can find like Mario and Luigi
Yep.
is in there and stuff. It's cool. Um, but yeah, I mean, um, so for sure, Carson. I think probably Christian Robinson for sure. I don't want to like list off a bunch of people because I feel like I'll forget somebody.
This is
Um,
the smallest sampling of a list of thousands and thousands, but is there someone that without saying they're the best person in the world, but someone who you think is like just has not broken yet, but we should all know about, like a fellow artist that or things of the sort like that?
oh, yeah, my friend Lizzie O'Donnell, has like one book out, um, and another one coming, and I think their work is really fantastic, really above and beyond. My buddy Steve Tier, I think his first book is about to come out, and Steve was somebody that I saw his work at like a comic show kind of thing, and now he's like sort of making all these like picture books and stuff, and I think it's like it just fits so super well. Um, I don't know. I should have like prepared a list of people. I could probably rattle off 40 if I had time to think about it, but now that I'm
Yeah,
trying to, I can't really come up with too much.
we're there's plenty of those names are enough for us to jump on. I know my wife is probably writing them down upstairs so we can go peruse them. There's so many folks that we all know that are in this industry that you know.
I mean, someone I'll give a shout out to who had a huge influence on me, who I don't know if they're not up and coming necessarily, but you might not know their work. Um, is Zaylut. I don't know if have you ever heard that name before, illustrator Zaylut. Um, she's from Holland. Her name's Aline, but this is like a little book that I have of some of her poster designs. I'll try to find one that's like more PG in case kids are watching it. um, but she does really, really, really interesting, almost like avant-garde graphic stuff. And she's just an incredible draftsperson. And Aline is another person who, when I was 22 or 21 or something, when I was just out of school, I was making posters and posting them online. We were posting our stuff on the same forums, back when the internet was like less monetized. And she invited me to share some of my posters in a show where she lived in Holland, in The Hague. And I, it was the first time I went to Europe. Travel was not like a thing that we did in our family, especially like not European travel. And so it was like my first time doing something like that. And she lived in a squat with like 15 other artists. And I had never seen anything like that. And she made her living doing silk screens and making posters. And she really, similar to Ed, like she just talked to me like I was an artist. She just like sort of reached her hand down and sort of was like, I like what you're doing. and she put me up for 2 weeks. I stayed there, and I just sort of had never seen artists like live that way. And like, 5 years later, I was living in a warehouse in Philadelphia with some of my friends, um, and like kind of making my way as an artist. Um, and I don't know. I think like she's pretty well known, I think in her town or whatever, but she's somebody who deserves to be like, I think, like one of the best known illustrators in the world.
Is there
Um,
what's the art scene like in Philly nowadays? I mean, like, I know that there's a good art scene, and I know that the school that the University of the Arts produced a plethora of people that live in that area. But in the area that you're in right now, is there a healthy art scene? Is it, since you're close enough to New York, do you feel like it leans heavier on the New York side?
yeah, I mean, I think like some people, not me, but some people have like a um, sort of a chip on their shoulder that Philly's not New York. Um, and I, I, I don't really know much about the art scene, to be honest. So I'm probably not the best person to ask about it. I have some friends that are, I guess I have a lot of friends that are artists. I don't have too many friends that are um, making 100% of their living as artists,
Got
Um, like, I have friends that like teach or, um, have just kind of like unrelated day job kind of things, but they're still artists.
Yep.
Um, I, the things I like about Philly is that the community here is really sort of open. And my friend Katie, who's an artist, really talented printmaker, she doesn't live in Philly anymore, but she used to. She talks about Philly like it's a kick and a hug. Like, we're gonna kick you, but we'll help you back up and give you a little hug.
Yeah, it's the
Um,
city of brotherly love. That's how brothers work.
I guess so.
Same, same
I
thing.
don't know. I don't know if that's the original meaning, but it it does feel like, for me, if I had been in New York, I definitely wouldn't be able to have the studio that I have
Yeah.
now, and I wouldn't be able to have the house that I live in. And um, when I was, younger, and my studio rent was like $250 a month or whatever, I don't think that would have been the case in New York. Um, so I do think there's that aspect to it. That sort of like artists end up here and end up staying because they like it would mean giving up a lot to leave, you know? Um,
I mean,
but yeah, I had lunch or coffee or something last week with Kevin Cornell, the illustrator.
mhm.
And we do that semi regularly. And I try to like meet up with people, uh, with like creative people, to talk. Like, I try to do it once a week. Doesn't always happen, but it's like a
Yeah.
nice. There's enough of a scene here that I could sort of I have like a rotating cast of people that are willing to grab a coffee and talk shop or whatever.
I was going to ask about that, the crit group, in the sense of, do you have folks? But it sounds like you do, just in a non, like, formulaic way. It's sort of grab coffee with people versus uh, hunt them down and say we're going to meet every week or what have you.
Yeah,
I
Kevin and I, we might show each other what we're working on, but it's usually like, oh, I just finished this thing, and I'm like, oh, that looks awesome. We don't really critique. It's more of like we have the same agent, and I think we met that way. So it maybe sometimes more like navigating, like, have you worked with this person, or what? This thing just happened to me. Like, what do you think I should do, or that kind of stuff. Um,
I'm in a crit group with a variety of folks, and that it's funny because it's called a crit group, but I feel like most of the time it is a show off what you're working on, and then um, you know everybody likes it for the most part. I don't think anybody's ever looked at any of them and been like, nope, that's a dud. Um,
mm,
still super helpful in the sense of being able to have the time to sort of poke and prod sort of what else everybody's working on, so you're not sort of stagnant in your studio the whole time thinking like, I'm the only one doing this thing and no one else understands my plight of any sort. So
Yeah, I think like one thing I'll say is like when I had a studio at Space 1026 in Chinatown, there was just like always somebody there. There was always like somebody doing something, and I don't know, there would be like a noise show or a gallery opening or something like every night, or not every night of the week, but often. And there were always people that are like up to collaborative shows and stuff. And then when Kay and I ended up getting kind of like fed up for a variety of reasons with that space, and we moved to this like warehouse space. There was like 50 different artists in a huge old like pre-industrial warehouse. And we had a big spot, and it was great, but it was, I don't know, the guy next door to me had like a nervous breakdown after a separation or something, and started writing musicals, and he would like sing
okay, yeah,
he would sing like, what is it called, Les Mis, like trying to get the cadence of Les Mis into his own work, and he would just like scream sing it. And I after 9 years of being there, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. We have to get out of here. And so we're at the spot we're at now, and it's just the two of us. And she has lamented a few times, and I sometimes agree. It just depends on the day. Like that, I wish we just had like a few more people around, just so you don't have that feeling of like, oh, I'm the only one out here doing this thing, and you can sort of share resources a little
yeah.
easier. But that's why I tried to start doing that thing where I meet up with people more regularly.
It's one of those things where like I don't know as everybody out there understands, but how lonely it can be in an illustrator's life, because you are sort of by yourself the whole time. I do see a question here I want to get to. So it says,
Sure.
author illustrator submitting a manuscript for consideration. This is coming from Teacher Marin. Does it need to be copyrighted first? At what point do you copyright your work, please? And so, obviously, are you going to the trouble of copywriting stuff of any sort?
No, I'm not. I did just spill a massive amount of ink on my table, so I'm going to grab a paper towel.
Okay.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah.
I think that probably the concern. I mean, first of all, if you are submitting something to be published by a legitimate publisher, and I'm not talking about like a vanity press where they tell you that you have to pay them to print it, but if you are paying, a publisher who's going to do the printing and the distribution and all that kind of stuff on their dime, they will copyright it for you. That will, I mean, I think like they'll send it to the Library of Congress for you or whatever. I don't, and put your copyright on it. It's the peril of, I put my ink on my drawing table, which has a slight slant, and it of course fell.
Ready for that? Yeah.
My feed is like a little weird too. I see like a shadow or something.
Yeah. Copyright is. Oh, is that the holder? Maybe.
I think it is. I think it is the holder. Yeah.
Copyright is automatically tied to your work when you make it. It is not registered as a copyright, but you own
Right.
right to your work. But yeah, I've never had a publisher ask. The only I assume the question is somewhat in the sense of like what's the
I'm wondering if they think like because you're submitting it, do you need to have a copyright so nobody steals your idea?
yeah
Which
yeah
is just like not a thing that I mean, I'm sure it's happened before. I guess I don't know that I'm sure, but um, it, it's just like such a small industry that if people were operating that way, they would it would become known pretty quickly, and so I don't think anyone legitimate would would be doing that. So just think about who you're submitting it to,
Yeah.
and
Those
I wouldn't stress about it too much.
those folks would get run out of town if they were trying to steal people's work like that of some sort. Uh,
Yeah, bony bone style for
yeah,
sure.
it's to me that if I wouldn't fret over it of any sort, and then I would also just know that like uh, the idea that they would take something, they're not paying you uh, to steal your, or they're not rather looking at it to steal your idea in those most cases, or in all cases for the most part. Just that idea of what you are doing when you're sending them something, more than likely is not going to be the finished thing in the first place. It is a, hey, do you like my thinking, and do you want to work together on something, which is a very
Yeah, that's a really good point too. It's like it's going to change, you know.
yeah. And so if you copyright it, that's lovely, but more than likely, a year into the process, it'll be a totally different book. And at that point, what do you need for that copyright? I've only known one person I work with that had to deal with a copyright lawsuit because of the theft of their work. And it was another country that got involved and other things. And so I just don't think it happens in any sort of capacity.
Oh, I've had that happen where like a fly by night print on demand t-shirt place has is like printing something with some design that I had on a sticker or something, and they took it off of Etsy and put it on a coin purse. And I'm usually just like, I just wanted one of them, just give me one. You could have at least
Yeah.
sent me one of the things. But I think it's a pretty pathetic way to make a living, but
Yep.
you can't. I don't know that I would. I haven't hired a lawyer to deal with anything like that. So
There was an era back in the day where there was this threat of like, there's sites online that are taking your illustrations and putting them on T-shirts and blah blah blah. I remember there being a big like threat over it. Everybody was like, "Oh, they have my info on there, and I can't believe they have my images." And in reality, it was just a algorithm that would populate your images from the web. So if you searched your name or anybody's name, it would just grab any image off the web that was theirs and show you what it would look like on a T-shirt. But everybody assumed,
okay.
they were actually making these T-shirts. And in reality, it was just like low-res images that they were populating there, and that was it. But again, I don't think I agree with you in the sense that I don't think it's worth the fight, and it costs money. It costs a chunk of change to do a copyright for things, especially a book, because it's not a singular image. The other question that I would love to sort of get your consensus on is going back to that idea of the big picture thing of how do you become an artist, but I would love to hear a little bit about how you met your agent, or how your agent, I mean, it's Stephen Malk, right?
Malk, yeah.
Malk?
Yeah.
Is it Malk?
Malk, yeah.
You know what it is every time I see it, I think of Pavement's Stephen Malkmus. And so I always
Sure.
I go to that every single time. But was there a instance in which you met him and that became sort of an immediate sort of, we get each other, we vibe, or was, how did that come to be?
Yeah, I mean it I'm just gonna make sure my camera is actually, yeah, it looks okay. Got some ink on my sweatshirt, so now I'm dealing with that. So you're gonna see live sweatshirt repair instead of drawing. Yeah, we started talking about my work, and it was probably like he saw the things I made in grad school. I mentioned to you that I made like 2 books in grad school,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
and he didn't think they were ready. Right? He was like, there's something here, but I don't think either one of these could be a book, right? And I think he was right. I think he was totally right on. Um, but he was encouraging though. He was just like, just keep doing your thing, like you're doing what you're doing, and just keep doing your thing. And I think it was hard to hear at the time, and it can be hard for illustrators, aspiring people who want a book deal, and it's this big, like, sort of obfuscated world where it just feels like it's closed off. I totally get that. Um, but it's like, he was just like, just slow down, take your time, let it happen organically, and just keep making work, basically. And
He got your work in the first place, or how he found your work in the first place?
he at the time represented Brian Biggs, and Brian took a screen printing class that I was teaching, and unbeknownst to me, I'd sort of told him, I'd showed him my stuff or whatever, but unbeknownst to me, he sent it to Steve, and so that started a conversation between Steve
Okay.
and I. But then it was probably another, at least a year, maybe 18 months of me like checking in with him every once in a while and saying, hey, here's this new thing that I made, or here's a postcard that I did, or whatever. And before he offered me representation, and then it was maybe another year before I sold my first book. Something like that. So it wasn't like a thing where I wrote a query letter, um, and like submitted to like 10 different agents, and he wrote back to me or whatever. It was just kind of like he was the guy that I knew and that I had been emailing with, and I knew he represented John Clausen and John Cheska and Lane Smith and, like, I don't know, Carson Ellis, and I was just like, all right, well, these are all the people that I like, so I'm just gonna keep talking to this guy and keep emailing him stuff. And now, I mean, so that was probably 2009, I guess, when we started talking, and he has represented me since the summer of 2010, I want to say. So that's like 16 years almost. He's like a part of the family now. You know. So yeah. And then I sold. Oh, say that again. Say that again.
He's one of those names where I feel like when you hear his name, partially because of the client list that he has, but also just he's been around and part of Writer's House for so long that whenever I hear his name, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the guy, that's the one at Writer's House. And
well, Writer's House has a lot of really good agents. I mean, you could say the same thing about Rebecca Sherman or Stephen Barr or whatever. But
yeah.
but Steve and I, connected over our mutual admiration of punk bands. We both, love the Clash a lot, and I think, like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. Like, he's the only agent I've had, so I don't know what it's like to have another agent, but I know what working with Steve is like, and it's great.
Yep.
So yeah. But yeah,
That's
sometimes people will be like, "Can you tell me how to submit to agents?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know. I don't know how to do that."
Well, again, it's one of those things where I feel like everybody talks about the query letter as like the thing to do, but I always feel like a good majority of the people got agents in other ways. And not to say that you have to be connected. Like, obviously, knowing Brian Biggs and he puts your name forward is lovely, but there are so many other opportunities to meet agents besides a query letter. And
if you pay attention to those and you really spend your time like hunting down opportunities that get you in front of people, that those can be just as important, if not more rewarding, than a random letter being sent out to someone.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like sort of like I don't know. I don't know enough about it to know like how much business they get through query letters or how much they get from client recommendation. I just don't know. So I can't really say. But um, if you have you ever talked to Bob Shea? Has Bob ever
Yep.
done this thing before?
Bob has. Yep.
Bob is like an old friend of mine, and the way I met Bob was like in 2010, maybe. I emailed him. I still had my day job. I would think I was repped by Steve. I must have been repped by Steve at the time. Um, but I didn't have any book deals, and I still had a day job that I kind of hated. And I was still doing the SCBWI thing of like going to portfolio reviews and stuff, trying to stir up interest and stuff. And I think I just emailed Bob and said, "Hey, I really like your work. Your work is really cool." And he emailed me back like that day and was like, "Hey, I'm in Philly. Let's get a beer." And like, you know, 15, 16 years later, like he's still, we're still close. So I don't know. I think like you're right in that sometimes it's just putting yourself out there to different people. And I don't know if that's qualifies as networking, but just like being a fan of people too, and not like necessarily being a careerist about it. I wasn't like, hey Bob, like
Get me a job. Yeah.
can you hook me up, or whatever. It
Yeah.
was um so
Well,
I don't know.
the thing that I've told people like in mentorships and stuff that I've had is that one of the best things that I ever found for networking is not to go to the events at like, SBWI or whatever, and then spend your time talking to people after the workshops. It's to go out at night to a bar that's nearby, or go out to a restaurant and go out with a crowd where everybody knows at least someone. And the network happens because you're in that environment that is not prescribed to be um, a networking event. It's just people living their life. And I always found that sort of
Yeah,
going to
I think that's right. Yeah.
that's where you get to like meet people and you go like, oh, this person's cool. And I found out that they like this sports team that I like, or whatever makes sense for that person. And
Right.
it's
Right.
a real connection, not a fake connection, or the glossy cover is removed in some sense. Um,
Yeah, I think that's right. Um I think and I think it probably it's a pretty personal relationship, like whether you're talking about an editor or an agent or an art director or whatever. I think like the advice that if people are looking for advice, I don't know if it's just you and I talking, Mark, but like I think like be a fan is and be like really into it. Like I think I've met people before, and sometimes some of them are people I know well, and they're like, can you help me, or can you? I want to get into this thing. And it's like it's clear that they haven't really like done the homework. Like they
yep,
haven't.
yep,
Um, or like people ask me sometimes like, I want to write a kid's book. My favorite book is Where the Wild Things Are. It's like, all right, well, cool. Do you have another book maybe that was published in the last 50 years that you also like? What I mean?
yeah.
And
Or
I love, obviously I love the Where the Wild Things Are. I'm not, I love Sendek. He's one of those North Stars, but like, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like,
it,
just
I
be
mean,
people that make books they want to work with people who are in it,
Who love books.
who love books, like who are in it for life.
I mean, that idea of networking and whatnot, like in general, just if you're going for an interview, you don't go to an interview and show up and go, I'm here for the job. What do you guys do here? Like you need,
Right.
you
Right.
need to know that stuff. If you have an idea for a book doesn't mean that you shouldn't know who you're sending it to. The equivalent of like, I have folks that ask me about agents or ask me about publishers and things of the sort. And I'm no expert on any of it, but I am an expert on the idea that you don't just send it to everybody. You send it to the people who make sense for you. And the only way you do that is by studying who they are. And every single agent site, every single publisher has stuff out on the internet that you can go research,
Right.
find out what they like, what are they producing, et cetera. Down the
Well,
line.
it's I mean, I don't know. I don't want to like shake my cane at the sky, so to speak, but like it's also never been easier because like all the publishers now, I mean, it's never been easier to find out who those people are that you might want to work with because all the publishers now um like all of my books say who the art director was and who the editor was and who the copy editor was and who the production designer was on the inside cover. And so like if you have 10 books that you really like and they're all edited by the same person and you sort of like get that person's point of view and you dig it, like then submit to that editor.
Yep.
And if the idea of like going to the library or going to the bookstore and finding 10 books that you really like and finding a point of view seems like too much work for you, then you're not going to get work. I'm sorry. It's just not
But
how it works.
the I don't know if this is of your era as well, but when I got out of school, internet was not a thing. It was not a like people didn't have websites everywhere, and so
Mm,
if you had to go get a job, like I was trying to get editorial at the time, I would go to Barnes and Noble, and I would sit down, and I would grab a bunch of magazines off their magazine shelf, and I would go through and I'd write down every single masthead. Here's the art director, here's the editor, here's the designer, etc., and
mm.
hand letter or hand write out every postcard that I sent out. And that was just a thing that everybody did. Nowadays, I don't think that it's as common for people to do that. But you put in that legwork and you get a real understanding of what magazines were right for you or what art directors liked. And I feel like nowadays it's a matter of just like putting stuff out on the internet. This is me shaking my cane, putting stuff out on the internet and hoping that people are going to come find you. And that doesn't always hold true of any sort anymore, especially with the algorithms changing on a regular basis. Um, Here's a question I see here as well. Early on, how did you keep from getting overwhelmed by all that is already available? Sort of, yeah. How did you personally stand out or make it so you would stand out in some way? Or I don't want to say stand out, but like, how did you know that what you were doing was unique or interesting in some capacity for you, if that makes any sense?
Ooh, I mean, I guess that's a question, right? That haunts me to this day. For me, for my work, for my artwork and my writing, there's always like this question of like when to stop and when is a piece done, and um, for me, I just like I I have this sense of like, well, this works, and when it works, it's good. Like I'm kind of done, and I'm not done if something is like not working. You know, I don't know
Yeah.
if that makes sense, and I think by reading a lot of stuff and developing taste, um, developing your own sense of taste, you will sort of become able to edit your own stuff and to know when it works and when it doesn't. You just have to like the process is like of, I don't know. I'm trying to look at what the question was. Overwhelmed by all that's readily available. I, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I felt like, oh, I'm going to publish this book because it's so different than other stuff that's readily available. It's just kind of like, this is the book that I want to make, and I'm going to, if it works, then I'm going to try to share it with the world. And I'm until it quote unquote
Uh-oh.
different stuff.
Are you there? Greg, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. I think. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I think one of my AirPods died, and it
Okay.
caused an issue.
We only have about 4 minutes left before you went the full 4 hours.
I did it, man. I think it's because we started at 2. I can do that. I can do that. That 8 o'clock nonsense. I don't know how you do that. Oh, your piece. I'm just leaving your piece now. That looks really cool, man. The classroom scene.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm testing out something for a book idea, and it's not this. I wanted to see if I played around with splatter color, if it would make a difference, and I'm not 100% sold on it, but thank you. I appreciate that. I've been enjoying watching all that you've worked like the.
I do like. I mean, the thing that I like about this piece is that your line work is able to a little more too. Like the lines on that dress, and
I've been trying
I
to figure
really like that.
line in for the longest time, and I just realized maybe I just need to put line in. Like,
Yeah, right.
instead of trying to be subtle about it, let's just put line in. And I
Yeah.
do think I need to not close off all the spaces the way I did and some other things, but it's a test to see if it will work. And it gives me a sense of where I go. I have a book idea that I have the tendency of like, I don't want to do the same aesthetic every single time. And I need slight variations, and I'm trying to test out a variation. So, well, why don't I'm back to to my face here for a second. There we go. This is
Do that.
and we can do a proper send off. Is there anything that you want people to know that you have coming up, etc.?
Oh, look at me. I'm in the shadows here.
I have 6 lights in my studio, like different lights,
Oh,
different
really?
colors and stuff to get. Yeah, it's
My studio. I have all these like ceiling.
yeah. This I have set this up to try to get the most color accurate when I paint. That's what it's about. And so like I have different incandescents and fluorescence and all sorts of grossness. But is there stuff coming out that you want people to know about?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, When the Sun Goes Down comes out in April. It is a bedtime book. It's kind of like in the vein of like Margaret Wise Brown.
Cool.
That's kind of like the inspiration for sure. And I did the art sort of the way that I drew stuff tonight, where I drew it in layers, one at a time. And that comes out in April. And probably the little butterfly I drew tonight, I'm going to make a sticker. So if you want to get a sticker with it, I'm going to throw that up as a pre-order thing.
I will. You will be seeing my name in that pre-order list.
No.
And then one last plug for your wife's show.
Oh yeah, if you're in for Kay's book is called Casey's Cases: The Mysterious New Girl. The second one is called Everything Is Terrible.
Okay.
And her art show, not her graphic novel stuff, but stuff, is in Philly tomorrow night at Hamilton. What used to be called Hamilton Hall in UArts at Broad Street and Pine. I think from 5 to 8.
Okay. Cool. If I was down there, I would go, but I'm not traveling with the risk of snow any of these days going forward that way.
No worries. We'll take pictures.
Yeah, but I really do appreciate you taking the time. This has been lovely, and I'm glad. I always feel like at the end I can say like I got to know a person fairly well and consider you a digital Philadelphia. Let's put it that way. If we circuits at any point, say hi. I will hunt you down and buy you a beer or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I will not hunt you down. But are you going to ALA this year?
Yeah, in Chicago. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Okay, I'll be there too. So maybe I'll run into
Oh,
you there.
cool.
So,
Yeah, let's try to make it happen for
yeah.
sure. And I thank you for what you do because I throw your thing on in the background while drawing final art sometimes, and it's nice. So the people talk about it's a good service you're doing.
We try. Otherwise, go have a lovely evening. Go tend to those kids. Say hi to the wife.
And then have a good one. Thank you.
I know it's going to cut me off in just a second. Next week, James Braithwaite. Did it cut me off? No, not yet. Okay, bye.